Ah, for Hello, friends and listeners, and a hearty and wholesome welcome to this jam-packed episode of episode 3 of Betrayed by Dice, the tabletop wargaming podcast that always sticks its magnets on the wrong way round. My name's Lee Burns, and I'm joined here again by my co-host, Daryl T. Stoker. Daryl, we're recording this the back end of the weekend.
Yep.
Have you had a good weekend? How's things going?
Yeah, nice. A fairly relaxed weekend. A fairly relaxed weekend. Club night on Friday, which was pretty chill, and then had some games today, which were fun. But yeah, other than that, pretty chill weekend. How about you?
Good. I've been doing a lot of childcare this weekend. I've got 2 children, and my partner today has been at a spa.
Oh, lovely
day at a hotel.
Lovely.
So so I've been doing childcare while she does that. But this is my
That's
spa time, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, recording, getting to chat about all this stuff is like a jacuzzi for the soul, isn't it? So let's get into some of that.
It is.
So a bit of housekeeping first. So if you're watching this, then you can listen to us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. If you are listening to us, then you can watch us and you get exciting access to supplementary pictures of the stuff that we're talking about. And that's at youtube.com/Northern Realms. You could do both at the same time, which would be good for our stats. And, if you just need to synchronize hit and play on 2 devices at the same time, go for it.
Easy peasy.
We've also got an Instagram account where we'll be posting the stuff that we talk about. That's instagram.com/betrayedbydice. You can email us at betrayedbydice@gmail.com. And that's it. So today's show, and it's shaping up to be pretty sizable. It's a bit of a whopper. We've got some stuff to talk about.
Yeah, man.
So we're doing hobby progress and plans. As per comme d'habitude, and that's including an exciting update and probably a bit of shared sort of hobby plans from the world of Warmaster.
It is indeed.
So there's lots to get into there. Also, I've been down to Warhammer World, and so there's some stuff to talk about there. So that's some recent games that I've got to talk about. A recent game of Kill Team down there, and you're fresh back from a Conquest tournament
Just an hour ago.
So absolutely hot off the press.
Yeah.
Conquest content coming at everyone from the podcast here. We're looking at doing an exciting new segment called Good GW, Bad GW.
Yeah.
The purpose of this is to make sure that we're relevant and people listen to us.
Of course. Get the hashtags in. Yeah.
Got to do that. We'll explain more about that imminently. And the main topic for today is, well, we're loosely calling it All the Gear, Some Idea. So we're going to each look at our top 5 of hobby-related gear, stuff,
Must-haves.
the things that, I guess for me, when I've chosen mine, so this is exciting, right? So we've chosen our top 5s. I don't know what you've picked.
Yeah, we've purposely done it sort of under wraps so that we haven't discussed it prior to. Nobody has influenced our decisions. It is all our thoughts.
It's all fresh.
It is.
So I might be, furious about some of the things that you've picked.
I would imagine not.
Because they're terrible, but yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
But we'll see. It'll be interesting to see where we agree. And
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then after that, we're going to look at a run through of, sort of some of our most favorite and least favorite and things, in running through the sort of broad taxonomy of hobby stuff, because there's, as with all good hobbies, there's a lot of things that you can get to sort of facilitate doing it.
Yeah.
Some of which are probably fairly vital. You're going to need paints and miniatures probably for what we do.
Most likely.
Some of which not so much.
Not necessarily a brush, but usually helps, yeah. Finger painting is a thing.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't gotten into that part of the scene, but but we're just a really broad discussion about lots of the different things which are, help facilitate.
Yeah, the things that we all use on a regular basis, but might not necessarily have a full awareness of, or maybe just like to listen to other people's opinions, which is always fun, isn't it?
And like everybody does things slightly differently. And something I always think is interesting is how, somebody might have just a slightly different technique and they get a use out of something which you wouldn't have thought of.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll talk about all of that. And then we're going to finish with secondary objectives where we're each picking out something possibly not strictly tabletop related that we've enjoyed or been thinking about recently. And that's going to do it.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to it.
Fired straight in?
Let's go.
Who's going to talk first about hobby progress and plans?
I will let you, because I've got a small confession to make during mine. Yeah.
Ooh, exciting. All right. Hobby progress and plans. And okay, so a few things. I feel like I've been fairly productive recently.
Yeah, you've done a lot.
There's a few boxes getting ticked. I've found the key to that is to paint single miniatures. And then, you get them finished and you sort of feel good about it. But
you get to take the pictures and feel happy about sharing them and getting feedback.
Absolutely. But so I've been finishing, and I have finished all the drop pods from the Gallo Fall Kill Team terrain expansion.
Yeah, they looked awesome as well.
So they were great. I did sort of half of them. I base painted in, I think it was Ushabti bone, so they're like a bone color.
Yeah.
And the other half in Pro Acryl Jade.
Jade, yeah.
So I just wanted like a sort of contrast between two of them, and also for them to contrast with the main Gallo Fall terrain that I've got.
Which tends to be on the darker side of things, doesn't it? It's dark metallics and rusts and things like that, with the odd splattering of colour.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, they've come out pretty good. And basically, having sort of base coated them, dry brushed highlights with like makeup brushes, which we'll get into soon. Sort of like just through every kind of weathering technique that I knew about, really. So like they all got oil washed, a slightly different oil wash for a darker, more black oil wash for the jade ones.
Yeah.
And more of a kind of sepia oil wash for the Ushabti bone ones.
Yeah, which gives it that nice sort of aged look, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I had recently been to Warhammer World and seen, Deathwing looking amazing, and just the bone in general looks fantastic.
Yeah, it's that sort of aged, starting to get that sort of stain of time look to it, isn't it? Where it's not just something that's on it. It's a universal change, but more accentuated in other areas, and it's just so like I saw a guy who had painted a Sisters of Battle army, Adeptus Sororitas, in entirely that, with some red accents, a bit like is it the Shadow Keepers or something like that? Which are there's a Custodes faction, and it just looks absolutely fantastic. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. So bang into that, and I thought those drop pods looked fantastic, especially, but I am particularly fond of the colour jade.
Yeah.
I was really, really into that.
Very cool. Haven't played with them yet, so that's on the agenda to do, because some really cool missions to do. So it was oil washes. What else? Chipping with like sponging, and then just like dry brushing them up again.
Nice.
But they were great to do. Then something completely different to that was so I've had the Miari's Purifiers. They're called. It's an Warhammer Underworlds warband.
Yeah. Lumineth Realm Lords,
aka High Elves, but Lumineth Realm Lords.
Hold on a minute. You've got to leave the old world behind, remember?
I know. But they...
Or not, as we've done, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we'll get into that. But they were, completely different. Like, they're such detailed, but, like, clean models. All the lines are so clean that, like, I kind of realized halfway through that my normal thing of, like, a base coat, hoist some sort of wash on it just wasn't going to kind of work. No. So actually, and I did go back to look at how they'd been done in the box art. There's very little contrast between the sort of darker colors, but they're all very light colors, and there's not much shading going on. There's not much contrast on the models, which normally, people tell you make sure you've got a lot of contrast on your models. Yeah. With them, not so much, and they look fine for not having that.
And thematically, I think that's where they're at, isn't it? Because they're the upholders of light and justice, or their own version of justice, and they feel very clean and sterile, and they're almost just like the High Elves of old, too good to have been sullied by, rain
accumulated grime or
exactly,
anything like that.
no such thing in
sort
there.
of meant to be, I don't know, they're ethereal, aren't they, in some sense? So, so that was cool. And just playing around with just some very light colors. So like, again, there's some Ushabti bone going on, and Pallid Witch flesh.
Beautiful color.
Which is a great color.
Yeah.
And actually goes on, I think it's a layer paint, but goes on really nicely, covers pretty good. Yeah. So that was great, and got a game in with those.
Awesome.
And then I spent some time painting up a guy that I'm calling Nebulous Darkside. So this is going to be the wizard from Frostgrave Warband.
It looks awesome. Based on one of the old world wizards, right?
It's an old battle wizard. It's one of them. I bought some bits off eBay, and then just sort of hoid them together, because I think they came in like a box of 4, and I think you could also get like a box of 2.
Yeah.
You get quite a lot of bits, so you can sort of like mix and match. So the way I built this dude was with some sort of enchanted bottle with like a skull-shaped smoke coming out of it.
Yeah, awesome.
Which was kind of interesting. So to do that, how do you paint smoke? So all I did was just with the Zenithal Prime that it already had, just put on a very, very light blue, not a wash, but a very light blue, like a light turquoise that had been thinned down a lot. So basically a glaze over the whole thing, and then glazed some purple over the top of that, towards the top of it, just to give a bit of a color shift.
Yeah.
But painting smokes, I don't know what the right way to go is.
I think painting smoke's interesting, isn't it? Because typically people do it in the opposite of a zenithal. So they have underlighting, and then they have because when you get those billowing clouds of smoke from fires and things like that, the darkest smoke tends to be at the top, and the rest of it's lit by whatever your OSL source is.
Yeah.
So good example is always that I can't remember what they're called, but it's the orc shaman from the Cruel Boys.
Okay, yeah.
He's got that sort of big cloud of smoke with a skull in it and things, or like a face in it. And people tend to do a lot of underlighting with a green or pink or whatever, and then greys and dark purples and things on top to give it. But I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do magic smoke.
Well, I was going to say, this smoke isn't coming from fire. This is magic smoke.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, I feel like there's no right answer. It's whatever your eye sees and you like to do.
Yeah. Well, the way I did it was the quickest way of getting it done and trying to make it look okay.
I thought it looked great, yeah. And you did the galaxy stuff on his cloak as well?
Yeah, so I've seen this done on YouTube and in other places, like, and look amazing, where people are painting a sort of like nebula type thing, particularly with like there's some guy on YouTube, I can't remember who, but like did it with like a bunch of Eldar vehicles.
Unbelievable.
Looks really amazing. And the guy that I saw do it the way he was doing it was with an airbrush and was basically, I think, like base painting it like black and then spraying on like white ink, but very transparent, and lots of different sort of patterns and sweeps. And then spray painting again, so airbrushing on kind of glazes of like purples, and
to create
dark
those
blues.
sort of nebula style greens and blues and purples, and
exactly. So and then I guess like sort of taking like a paintbrush with some white paint in it and kind of like flicking it with your thumb to get all the
the random
white
speckled
dots. Exactly. I think that's the way. So obviously when he was doing it on a big Eldar vehicle with an airbrush, he's got quite a big canvas. I was doing it on a tiny little guy, so I was like, how am I going to do this? So I painted it black, or with the Zenithal Prime anyway. Then painted over it with the darker of the Dark Eldar triads that I always forget.
Just keep talking and I'll remember.
Incubi Darkness.
Incubi Darkness.
There we go. Great, I got there first. So base painted Incubi Darkness and then just sponged on some purple and then some blue to kind of create a bit of a nebula thing, and then just went with the flicking some white paint on. And it looks pretty cool.
Yeah. And I think it looks more than pretty cool, mate. I think it looks fantastic.
Yeah, cheers. But it's like I'm all in for any kind of maximum impact from minimal skill kind of technique. So a base paint, some sponging, and some flicking, and that was it.
Very visually impressive. Yeah.
Pretty good to go. Yeah. And then the other thing that I've been doing some of is starting on a War Master Empire army.
Oh, yeah.
So what do we want to do? We're going to have a bit of a joint discussion about this at this point, or
Yeah, can do. Mm-hmm.
So who's to blame for this? Is it Drew in the Discord? Or?
No, actually, I'm going to claim it because I did ask many moons ago if anybody fancied Warmaster, and
planted the seed.
Drew was the only person that replied, and then popped back into the chat after a while saying, "Oh, I've read some of the stuff. Is anyone keen on it?" And then a few more people were like, "Oh, actually, I'll have a think about that as well." And then you were talking about it, and I think it just sort of spiraled a bit from there, didn't it? But I had been I've got a friend from a different club who had been painting some Bretonians not too long ago, and I was looking at pictures of them, and I was just like, this game looks great. I need to try and get a game of it here.
Yeah.
And it looked like it was something that I could do because I've got a printer and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, and it looked interesting in the sense that it's based on a rule set that we're both interested in, or a rule set that we're both interested in is based on it.
Yeah.
So Hail Caesar is based on the Warmaster style of commander,
I think so.
or similar. So you have central commanders that dish out orders to other people, and you have to roll for it. It's not just things that happen automatically.
Should we back up a tiny bit and say what Warmaster is? And where it, how it came about and where it went, and
sure,
because it's got an interesting story. So
lineage,
it was effectively the sort of the epic scale, or the epic, as Space Marine or epic as it became is to 40k.
Yeah,
Warmaster was to Warhammer Fantasy.
Indeed, and for anybody that doesn't know what epic is, it's tiny miniatures. Yeah. So if you're used to playing 40k, you're playing with 32mm scale miniatures. If we are talking about Warmaster, we're thinking about 10mm miniatures. Is that right?
This didn't sink in, honestly, until I actually got the miniatures. But so they are tiny. Yeah. And you're playing with, like, Legions Imperialis is just coming out, so people are probably sort of familiar with tiny Marines.
Tiny Marines.
Just imagine tiny High Elves, tiny Empire, tiny whatever. So they're on, like, what is it? Like you get like 2 strips.
Yeah, so you get 2 strips of miniatures, which is normally either 5 or 6 miniatures. So 2 strips of 5 or 6 miniatures, so 12 miniatures on a base, and the base itself is 40mm by 20mm. So your frontage, your 6 men or women or adjacent fit on a 40mm width, and they're about 10mm deep or less.
Yeah,
because there's some space for basing and things as well.
And one unit, well, one standard unit of infantry will be like 3 of those 40 by 20 bases.
Yeah. So 6 strips altogether.
Yep. So what's the appeal for yourself? Because I know why mine is, but what's calling to you from Warmaster?
So there's a few things. The rule set, as we were just mentioning, it looks like a fun, interesting rule set. The game got picked up by a sort of so GW dropped the game, right?
So it's a Rick Priestley game.
It is Rick Priestley.
A Rick Priestley game by GW like 23 years ago or something like that. And then I think got dropped because Epic hadn't done well.
Yeah, exactly.
And they'd sort of the suits had decided that they were going to sort of retreat in, or concentrate on their sort of core 3 games. Yeah, which I guess was 40k fantasy, and was it Lord of the Rings?
Necromunda?
I don't know. Anyway,
Necromunda's 93, I think so.
Okay. Yeah. But in any case, they basically sort of binned it off. And interestingly, I was listening to a podcast with who from GWF? It might have been Alan Merritt, I think, who I think was one of the guys who was sort of more responsible for fantasy turning into Age of Sigmar towards the end. But yeah, so he was saying that Warmaster was a game which he felt hadn't been done the dirty just because of sort of the way things were with sales. They got worried
because Epic wasn't doing well, and it never got its chance.
But rules-wise, it seems really fascinating, right? And it's a different experience.
Very different experience. So it's meant to be played less about what the individual soldier or unit is doing as such, and the numbers are much smaller in general, aren't they? You're not rolling buckets of dice, and you're not trying to, it's
and a lot of the stats are very similar across all these sort of infantry.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. You tend to have sort of archetypes, don't you? Where you'll hear people talk about like a 3-3-4 infantry or 3-3-4 cavalry, and it's just the sort of stats that are relevant to them. So I think you touched as well on Old World being changed to Age of Sigmar. We both kind of like heyday GW stuff, don't we? We're like the back end day, and we both play Conquest, which is a big rank and flank game in full size miniatures and things like that. And it feels like you probably don't have loads of room for maybe a full Old World experience, but this is letting us play with factions that we love, with characters, or you can imagine characters that you love, be able to paint those armies that you always wanted to paint. Maybe not to the same standard or whatever because the miniatures are so small, but it's that little drop of Old World nectar in a faster, more casual, fun experience at the club, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I think that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. I would agree with all of that. I think this is sort of perhaps typical of Betrayed by Dice. Just at the moment when the old world is coming back, and we could jump on that and like talk about that, and but no, we've decided to go with a game which has been killed off
from the realms of obscurity
20 odd years ago, and I think was kept alive. Like, this is the most hipster sounding story. It's great. I think it was kept alive in the Czech Republic.
Right.
But by if you look on the War Master, so it's called War Master Revolution I want to say, which is a sort of the fan maintained kind of rule book, which incorporated some of War Master Ancients.
Yeah. I think it's based mostly on Ancients, isn't it?
Okay. Yeah. The names of the sort of the dudes on the committee like Czech, and so I think it was kept alive there, and then has it's found its time again with the onset of and the rise in popularity of 3D printing,
and YouTube, and
all of that. So as far as miniatures goes, you could go on eBay and probably pay quite a lot for like the old GW.
An astronomical amount. You could probably pay for a unit what you could have a whole army for.
Yeah, or you could get your friend Daryl to get hold of some of the STLs. So like the two of the people that are producing most of the STLs which I've looked at is a guy called Forest Dragon
Miniatures. Yeah.
There we go.
So my army, I've chose Dark Elves, so the Druki, eternally bonded to the Malice Darkblade books, and some of my favourite literature from when I was sort of in my late teens, early 20s, and I just adored everything about the hags and Nagaroth in general, and how horrible these people were, and I love playing villains. I always have loved playing villains. So Dark Eldar are the spiritual successors to them. They've got a very similar theme with abduction, piracy, all that kind of stuff. So if you're a 40k fan, then you can sort of get that link there, and it means that I get paint loads of purple. Because that's the classic GW scheme for the Druki or the Dark Elves. And I also get to paint loads of Cold One Knights, which is absolutely amazing. Cold One Knights are one of the, if not the coolest cavalry unit from the old world. So if you don't know what Cold Ones are, they're basically Velociraptors. And then it's Dark Elf Knights riding Velociraptors with big lances.
Pretty cool.
Fantastic.
One of the, there's so many. It's massively scratching a sort of nostalgia itch. Just like looking back through some, like 8th edition army books and whatnot. But so that's Forest Dragon.
Yeah, so he does quite a few, or they do quite a few factions, but they don't cover everything. And there's also Mini Rat. So one of the things that Forest Dragon doesn't cover is the Empire. So I was scouting around and found Mini Rat. He's got both these guys have got Patreons. I'm saying guys, I don't know who's behind whoever's behind the actual stuff that they're putting out, but
the miniatures are crazy. So like when you look at them, it's zoomed in like a gazillion times. You're looking at it in some sort of like STL viewer, and you're like, oh, I can't wait to paint these. And then you get them, and you can't even.
I remember the slight look of dismay on your face when I handed over a box lid a miniature box lid, so it's only yay big for all the people on YouTube, and it had a full 2,000 point army and a load of extra stuff in it, and it was kind of like great, wow,
just the realization. Yeah, so like, I mean, we're talking was something that I've was going to mention in the hobby gear, which has sort of been a great help.
I feel like I'm probably going to have to buy some of those.
The fantastic little miniatures. It's that thing about like doing the old world, but without. I mean, like I have thought about doing the old world when it comes out. I've always wanted an Avaland army because I like painting yellow and black because I think it looks cool.
Black and yellow.
But yeah, there's no way, like spending the time to paint one unit of 20 guys, and the whatever they might bring out in the future is likely to be fairly detailed. I've noticed that the old world stuff is probably like less outrageously detailed than Age of Sigmar generally. Because they need to rank and flank it.
Absolutely.
And because there's probably a recognition that people are going to have to, paint 60.
A block of 40 skeletons is not,
whatever. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But even so, it's just like, a massive undertaking. So being able to do it in small scale, I'm going to have to figure out how to do it, you know, to be sort of fairly efficient. But yeah, and then to play a game where, you can like get some terrain printed off or borrowed or whatever at that scale. Those battles that I've sort of always wanted to fight, probably like with castles and rivers and like an actual sort of like
Warhammer Siege.
Warhammer Siege. Well, I've got part of the old
the ladders and the towers. Oh my god!
There's rules in it for sieges and stuff. I think
unbelievable.
So anyway,
so exciting.
So what have you painted so far for War Master?
Nothing. Well, I've begun. You picked them up before. I've begun a unit of Dark Spears, which are the rank and file infantry for the Druki. It's just 6 guys on a stand, shields, spears. They wear sort of long cloaks, chainmail over the top. Big, sharp, pointy shields. Awesome. And because it's a sort of unit-based game, the command stand has like a banner, and so I've went the not Brave Boy version, and I've printed off the banners with the sculpted detail.
Yeah, makes sense.
You went hard mode and chose the...
Accidentally, that wasn't... Well, I was thinking I was going to get some like decals, and then I saw the size of the banner, but I don't know what decal is going to go on there, so I'm just going to like cross it and like go like
because they've got like an Iron Cross style logo, haven't they? Part of the...
I mean, anything vaguely, I don't know, sort of middle-age-ish, or I don't know. Like a big, if it's Avaland, some sort of like sun type motif would be cool, but I don't know if I'm going to get hold of that. So yeah, I'll figure it out. But
just freehand it.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, steam tanks. I've always wanted to, like, I still sometimes think I'm going to get a steam tank. Never got one.
So they weren't even part of your initial order, were they? But I saw them and I was just like, you have to have them because they're so cool. Yeah, they are so cool, and
they're going to paint up really quick. Yeah, so I'm going to spray that thing silver, stick an oil wash on it, and then pick out some details, and that's done.
A couple of red bits, a couple of black bits.
The issue's going to be, I think, with painting this stuff is to like figure out what's the sort of acceptable amount of effort to put into like the rank and flank guys, which is really just picking out.
Put them on a table, man. So I reckon what my plan is going to be is why they're there, because I actually do sit in front of my computer whilst I'm painting quite a lot. So I don't go all the way over to where those are. So I can put them down after I've done a little bit and be like, okay, they look okay, or they need a bit more. Yeah, they need something else just to make them pop. Because one of I think the risks that we might have is that because they're so small, if you try and do sort of more subdued or sort of colours,
you're not going to
see anything. Yeah. I think they need to be like bright silver on the spear tips, even though it's like normally quite a dark looking army. Bright silver on the spear tips and almost like pink highlights to my purple to just make it so you can differentiate it. You know what I mean?
That makes sense. I mean, again, that was my thinking of Avaland. Yellow and black. Yeah, there's going to be some inbuilt contrast there. But yeah, it's gonna be super interesting. I think it's probably gonna be something we'll talk about, on future podcasts.
Going down the line, yeah, absolutely. I think it's something that we're both pretty excited about.
So I'm Empire, you're Dark Elves.
Dark Elves, the Druki.
We have at least one other person who's
Drew
playing.
has a Chaos Dwarves army, which he's
Tiny little big hats.
Yeah, tiny little huge hats, and he's already painted most of them, hasn't he? He's a beast. Drew, yeah, he is a machine. I've been elbowing Josh in the ribs for quite a long time, telling him that there's vampire counts, and he's got a bit of an attachment to the vampire counts. I think he'd probably be pretty easy to sway. He's also buying my 3D printer,
Okay.
which I've printed our 2 armies with.
Yep.
Because I've got a new one coming next week. So he's going to
Came
have
off great, by the way.
so
the
good.
prints come off great.
Yeah, so good. And I've got it sort of dialed in to the point where I think out of everything that I printed for you, I failed one stand of infantry, and I've just been having a bit of issue with the Griffin with just that hand, which is really frustrating us.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Josh will probably join in, and there's a couple of others that have asked questions. So
You've got to be the change that you want to see.
I am.
So yeah, if you
I've
want
been
to play
in full sales mode, yeah.
That's great. If you want to play War Master with us and you live anywhere in the northeast of England, then yeah, give us a shout.
Yeah.
Get in
West
touch with
Allotment Wildlands, yeah. Friday night,
Allotment
6
Wildlands.
p.m.
Let's do it. All right, that's all of my hobby progress and a bit of chit chat about related things.
Yep.
What have you got for us, Daryl? What's going on?
Well, I suppose I'll start with my secondary objective from last episode. I failed pretty significantly. So my plan was to get a bust off and get some paint on it. Failed really badly. And
At which hurdle did you fall?
I haven't even printed it.
Okay.
I haven't even printed it, yeah. So I think some of it was because I was printing stuff for us, but also a lot of it has come down to a bit of psychological block. Been in a bit of a hobby slump lately, last sort of 2 or 3 weeks. And I'm sure everyone can relate that's listened. That's sometimes just really hard to motivate yourself to get going. Like I've been having a bit of a rough couple of weeks anyways, work, and I've got deadlines coming up. I'm currently doing a master's. I've got deadline for that coming up. I've got an exam this week coming. I've got hand-in coming up soon, which is going to decide whether or not I pass my second year and blah, blah, blah. Just feeling like a bit pressed in from all sides. And I find it really difficult to sit down and concentrate on painting when I'm like that. And I'm glad that the War Master stuff started to heat up, because it's kind of been part of the spark that's got me back onto feeling like I want a hobby.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's what it is, isn't it? Sometimes it's something like maybe a new unit, or you play a game and it gets you back into the mood, or whatever. But for me, it's definitely been War Master. It's been really exciting for us. Like today, the tournament that I was meant to go to, I was meant to run a different faction altogether, and all I had to do was build one unit, 12 models, to do it, and I couldn't even really motivate myself to do that. So a bit rubbishy for me.
It happens, and it does, yeah. And it happens, and it happens a lot, and it's different for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah,
and it's really interesting about how like hobby stuff and real life stuff. Sometimes everything's just motoring along fine. Sometimes I find there's things that I should be doing in real life, and I'm like, screw this. I'm painting something instead. So it's like an escapism from that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it sort of like works the other way around. I don't know, like something else is going fine, and you don't want to do hobby stuff because, it's weird how it goes in different times, right?
Yeah, totally. But I mean, I can definitely feel things are getting back to where they need to be. I've got plans about which order I'm going to paint things in. I've even sliced the file for that bust today, so after you leave.
So we're still on with this same bust?
Absolutely, yep. That's getting put on. Very cool model. Yeah. So that's getting put on to print today, overnight tonight. Hopefully have some stuff with some paint on and base, so I think we're planning to have a game of War Master pretty soon, aren't we? So to get some things going there, and I've got a few other bits that I'm quite keen on getting painted. Looking forward to that.
All right.
So apologies that I failed my mission. I will do better next time.
Well,
yeah.
we're only doing these like once every month or something. I was
Yeah.
thinking it's quite, this is the third episode.
Yeah.
Like 3 is just one of the sort of favoured numbers of Nurgle, isn't it? So like disgustingly resilient. We're not quick at putting these podcasts out, but we're still going.
Yeah, we are.
But they come around and you're like, God, I better do something. So I've got something to talk about.
Well, like for the last 2, I had beasted loads of stuff out prior to it, hadn't I?
You're in credit.
So I felt, like
having to for sure.
So what's next?
What's next? Well, recent games is what this thing says here, so there's no reason to ignore it.
Yeah.
You've got some super recent games to talk about.
3 games of Conquest a day, 1,500-point tournament ran by a fellow Vanguard called Russ, who ran the event at a place called ProTech Games, I think around Middlesbrough way. Really, really cool venue, great day, met a couple of new folk. Ended up drawn on the top table at the end of the game, and the friend of ours called Dan, who's a member of the club, beat me on tournament points at the end of the day. So did a really good job with that. It was my first time playing the updated Dweg home in a competitive setting, and they definitely feel like they've been pulled into line with other people, not so strong anymore. So that was really fun. So thanks, Russ, and thanks for all the people that I played with today. It was good.
How many people were down there?
It was eight-man tournament.
That's cool.
So just it was fairly small event, but good, solid games. People were like dead friendly. The venue's really cool. It's too far for us to go regularly. I think it's now about an hour away, but the venue's fantastic. So if you do live anywhere near ProTech, definitely visit. So that was good. And
it's good to hear that Conquest's getting played elsewhere in the region, right?
Yeah. And our local FLGS, I'm going to start running demo days once a month there as well.
Fantastic. So is that Bay Games?
Bay Games, yeah. So Bay Games. If you need any Conquest product, please message Kieran at Bay Games, because he will sort you right out. He's a fantastic store owner. And I'm sure you've noticed yourself, it's a quite board games focused place, but he's a wargamer himself, and he definitely gets everything that you need in. But just a great shop, isn't it? Like, you can go and sit and have a coffee and play some board games. He's got a great collection of board games that you can borrow and things like that. So
it is. It's a great shop. It's kind of doing a couple of things really well.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big collection of board games, like you say.
Yeah.
For that people are coming in and hiring out. I see quite a few people in there with their kids playing different stuff, which is fantastic.
We took Ellie to play her first board game there.
That's brilliant.
2 weeks ago.
Oh, all right.
She loved it. Yeah.
Brilliant. But on top of that, I think where some like board gaming type places can fall down, or like gaming cafes can fall down, is just not having the real estate for tables. So the tables are big.
Yeah.
They're nice, clean, big tables, so you can absolutely get a game of 40k or something like that down there, or Conquest, as obviously as you're doing. So the tables is like one table 6x4, or is bigger again than that?
I think they're 8x4.
Very good.
8x4, so you can fit 2 4x4s or a 6x4 and some admin space on the side.
Brilliant. Good. So there's,
and he's got a facility to do 3 of those. And I think the bottom table actually can have 2 6x4s on it. It's a bit longer.
Yeah. So that's really nice. So as well as being a board gaming cafe, and the coffee's pretty good too.
It's great, yeah. And he gets really nice baked goods as well. I don't know if you've had any of them yet, but they're really good.
All right, that's good to know. But yeah, it's a totally viable place for small tournaments and things like that.
Absolutely, he runs regularly Shatterpoint tournaments and sort of smaller skirmish ones. So,
brilliant. So the tournament down in Stockton, Middlesbrough,
ProTech, yeah.
ProTech. Mm-hmm. Anything you sort of like take out of that for like if you were running anything or anything that was good or that you noted about the tournament in general?
Just general good folk that I played with today. It was really nice environment. Russ is a really friendly guy. He's came to my tournaments before and things like that. So everything was smooth, and relatively painless as far as having to travel back from and things like that. So yeah, nothing to take from it particularly other than that I had a really good time. And tournaments are great. It was not super competitive. It wasn't like everyone's trying really hard. There was a couple of people there, in fact, who played their first ever game of Conquest and played in the tournament.
That's great.
So that, amazing.
How was the scoring done? Is it on the Conquest app?
Yeah, so the app's now got a Swiss parents tournament structure built into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's really good. And you can just get a little QR code from your app with your list on, and it uploads all your player details and things. It's good.
That's so handy. All right. So much for Conquest.
Yeah, and on the darker side of things, I tried my first game of 40k 10th edition.
All right, so meme alert.
Mm-hmm.
Daryl's played some 40k.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how was that?
Yeah, so played with Dan, our friend from the Warhammer podcast, the WOR Warhammer podcast. I've been promising him a game for quite a long time, and he said that if I played a game of 40k with him, he'd come play a game Conquest with me.
All right. It's a deal.
It is a deal, indeed. We played Tau versus Dark Eldar. Maybe it was faction, maybe it was me being sort of new game. I felt like I had a pretty good grasp on the rules. I'm definitely a quick study. I just think the game is absolutely ruined by the way the terrain works. But I know the terrain works because the way it does, because things die too quickly in it. And because of that, I think everything just needs to be looked at again. So the game essentially went like this. I have everything hidden. You have everything hidden, except for maybe one or two things. I get first turn. I kill that one thing that I can see, and then hide the rest of my stuff. You get your turn. You kill that one thing that you can see, and then hide the rest of your stuff. And so on and so forth, ad nauseum. Yep,
yeah.
ad nauseum. And it all came down to, and I won the game, by the way. This isn't me being salty. I think I won by like 1 point. But I just felt like it was so uninteractive. It was just who can score the most on primary. We're scoring equal on each turn, right? Who's scoring the best on secondaries? It's either fixed, which I know there's a bit of tactical thing can come down to that, but we both decided to do So fixed is the non-tactical, isn't it? Yeah. And then tactical is the one where you draw, and then it's a bit of luck. And it just felt like, right, you can't see most of my army, so you've only got this to shoot at. Right, you can't see most from my army. And it just felt like, and we actually played on probably not enough terrain as far as a tournament standard board goes.
Okay.
But it's just the bottom floor being obscure and being able to hide loads of small units, stop any deep strike to stop things from getting into the back. You're never reaching it to the other side of the board without just getting wiped off. So it was kind of like a Mexican standoff of who's going to draw some bad secondaries at some point.
Okay. So I'm assuming, so you were Tau, right?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming a pretty shooty Tau list.
Yeah, but a mobile one.
Right.
A mobile one. So, I could chase things down if I needed to. I had a load of suits, and I had a couple of tanks.
I'm just wondering, was it because both sides had fairly, on the shooty side?
Yeah. But with the greatest of respects to people who play melee or shooty armies or whatever, I would say the vast majority of armies now are shooty because melee is so subpar in comparison that most people focus on highly ranged output armies.
Yeah.
So Eldar, massively ranged output, Admech, Space Marines, Votan, all of the big ones, Knights, they're all just shooty armies.
Yeah. And when you're talking about the terrain, is it the fact that so much, because I know that like things are in cover a lot because of the way that works.
It's not cover, it's the obscuring, so you can't see.
That's what we're talking about.
You just can't see them.
Things. Okay.
Yeah. So if you can run lots of small units for cheap, or if you can have units that are small enough to not be seen but still stand on a point, there's just zero interaction. And I just feel like that's what the game feels like to me. It feels like either who can roll all the dice and kill things that are outside, or who's just going to stand on points and score. It doesn't feel like there's enough interaction.
Yeah, interesting. So, I mean, Dan plays a lot of 40k, obviously.
He does, yeah.
What was I'm wondering what his sort of reflection on that particular...
He felt exactly the same.
Was he like, this is 10th edition, or this is a normal game and I agree? Or was he like, oh, that's gone in a particular way, which maybe isn't the best experience?
No, well, he's obviously a firm proponent of 40k, isn't he? He really likes 40k.
Sure.
But, there's things that he's very quickly soured on Necrons because they've got this sort of, I'm just going to stand in the middle and get either grind them down or I'm going to get ground down. Or in this situation, he's got multiple small units to be competitive, and then stuff that can fire and fade for free, things like that. And he's got the Dark Elder things that can shoot and then jump back. It's not fire and fade because it's not a stratagem, but it's a similar sort of thing. The Scourges. So, like even he said that didn't really feel like we were like fighting each other. It was just really non-interactive. And I'm sure if I was playing against a horde of orcs that were just running at us,
That
it would have
changes
been
things up a bit,
different.
yeah.
But then again, I would have been at a massive advantage because I had a very shooty army that's very good at pulling apart things that are not in cover.
I'm conscious of being a little bit devil's advocate here as well, but like, is there anything about like what the players do at the table that changes that up, or do you feel that it's just restricted by the terrain rules or whatever? Or
So if you choose to play suboptimally, yeah. So if you choose to not put your things in cover, but if I ever said to you,
Why would you do that?
Lee, would you like to put your things there on the objective and not be seen and not be shot? Or Lee, would you like to put your things there on the objective but be seen and killed by me next turn? You're going to say, I think I'll take the first one.
yeah. So it's not like a not playing. I don't know, narratively or anything. It's just to do with you're in cover or you're not, and you're obscured or you're not.
Yeah, this is the thing that people sort of need to rationalize in the head as well. I think a lot of people say, it's tournament players. I like more of a narrative style game. Listen, there's not a single person in the world that you say there's a big load of enemies over there. Go and get them, and they'll go, right, no bother. Well, I'll just stand in the middle of the street when there's all this cover around and get shot at.
Yeah.
So narrative doesn't work like that. That's not how it works. Narrative games, the way that narrative play is meant to be used is so that the list building rules and the reinforcement rules and all this kind of stuff don't apply. It's not I'm going to do things suboptimally or things that wouldn't happen.
I'm really great that we've sort of come up with the difference between narrative and suboptimal. Yeah, but I mean, I agree. I haven't played. I don't have a sort of dog in the fight. I've played like a couple of games of 10th edition and enjoyed them both a lot. And honestly, I'm looking to have a couple of games, in the not too distant future. And I'll have played so little that I will definitely be playing suboptimally. Maybe not to the extent of like just like having all my guys hanging out and getting shot massively off.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
I'm not saying that every decision I made was perfect, by the way.
No.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. It's interesting.
Do you know what I think really compounds that feeling for me? Army activations instead of alternating.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to put one of your units out in the open when the whole of the other army is going to have a shot at them and definitely remove them. If they're only getting to shoot with one unit before you get to go again, then you might want to put one of your guys out in the open if he's going to have a shot at getting on the objective in the next turn or whatever it is. So there is that. Alternating activations for the win, pretty much.
Yeah.
And that's something we should probably talk about at some point. But anyway, okay, so much for 40k. Anything else to say on that? Or
no, I'll give it another couple of goes. Try changing my mindset up, going fresh, all that kind of stuff. But just...
Were you super optimistic when you came into this? Were you like, I'm going to enjoy this? It's going to be great?
Totally.
Right.
It was. And it's because I really like Dan, and he's a very positive guy. And I just wanted to have a good game with a pal. And I wasn't there to like screw my head on and have the most awesome tournament game I've ever had. But like, I just never ever felt like I was playing against someone. I felt like I was playing against the system. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All
right, there we go. Anything else to talk about for your
just a load of card games, tons of card games to make my quick pick up and play. Been playing a lot of Flesh and Blood and a bit of Commander as well. Just fast, no hobbying involved in it, which is bad. But yeah, card games for the win.
That's cool. So you've been talking about like trying to get us interested in particular, I think, Flesh and Blood.
Indeed.
So tell us briefly, what's Flesh and Blood? Why is it good?
Flesh and Blood is if Soul Calibur
Okay.
was a card game,
Yep.
then that is how it is. That is how best way to describe it. Soul Calibur, Street Fighter, whatever, Tekken, and basically your hand of cards is your special moves, but it's also your blocks and your energy bar. So you've got to. It's all a gamble and working out how to be the most optimal. I know I like that word. In can I do I need to keep these cards to do damage, or should I defend with them? And it feels like these two people you play as a hero each. It feels like these two heroes are slogging it out as a battle. It's not like Magic where you're putting a load of cards on the table and I've got an army of zombies and then he's got an army of soldiers and I've got a big, a big minotaur or whatever. It's just two folk having a punch up.
And how does it work from a point of view of sort of deck building and combos and things like that? Is there a lot to get into? Or?
Yeah, there's plenty to explore, but it's pretty easy to pick up. And if you play a commoner format, which is what we're trying to introduce in the club, it's very cheap, £3-4 for a deck. And then you're laughing, and you've got just as much of a chance of winning as anyone. And we're not worrying about who's got the £200 card. That's going to make them 20% better than everyone else. Things like that.
Yeah, interesting. So we had a brief conversation about this the other night. So I think I don't play a lot of sort of like more interesting card games, that aren't like
Dutch Blitz.
Yeah, nothing wrong with Dutch Blitz. But anyway,
I'm just terrible at
it. Yeah, and I think like within this sort of like world of we're talking about tabletop gaming and things that you can sort of like really get into. I think the thing which, like, in my head, I'm not getting into, and, we'll see how this goes, but it's just that, with miniatures, there's something really tangible, and it's, breaking that sort of, being able to sort of, like do something that's sort of immersive, or there's something that physically represents that. I think that's the same reason that I've never, although I have thought about, getting into RPGs at some point, but just if there's not, like, a sort of physical thing there to look at, and plus I just like miniatures, so there's that. But, I've never really... just never really thought bought into the sort of card game like Flesh and Blood, like we're talking about. But we'll see.
I think it's a really good back pocket thing for a miniature gamer for a few reasons. One, it's quick, cheap, and sort of fairly low mental load to understand the game at first.
Yeah.
And two, you go to a night at the club, maybe you haven't got a game arranged, or maybe you've just got a short skirmish game arranged, whatever. That means that the other folk there that are at the club that have got a deck, right, I'm finished my game in an hour and a half. I had planned to spend 3 hours here. It's like, right, I'll have a game with you. That's half an hour. I'll have a game with you. That's half an hour. I'll have a game with you. That's half an hour. You get to socialise more. You get to, have a little bit of a game of something with loads of people. Card games are really good for that short window of interaction with people, which is good.
Yeah. No, that all makes a lot of sense. So, Flesh and Blood.
And just, like I said, just a back pocket thing. It's just in your bag if you also fancy a game afterwards, so you get finished early, or somebody ended up not turning up or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose it's like, it's cool to be able to like sort of like get into something which doesn't require that sort of like, like level of immersion in a world, or like buying into something.
And by the way, Flesh and Blood, it's got a really well fleshed out story.
Okay.
All the characters have got backstories. There's history. There's history for all the characters. There's interactions between them. So there's lots of stuff to read about, and then there's cards that have direct links to some of their background stories and things like that. So yeah, they're all really interesting characters. They're not just, it's not just Ryu and Ken who are the same character, but one's Japanese guy and the other one's American with blonde hair, and they got trained by the same dude. You know what I mean? It's there's a lot to it.
All right, so I'll think about broadening my horizons then with either Flesh or Blood or something similar.
What about you? What have you been playing?
Well, what have I been playing and where have I been playing it? So, had a fantastic experience of a bit of a road trip down to Warhammer World with friends Josh and Jamie. It'd been planned for like a good while. We'd been sort of, myself and Josh had been thinking about like what to play down there, because I've been down to Warhammer World once previously. Didn't play any games. We were just looking around the exhibition.
Yeah.
And so we decided this time that we would play some like multiplayer kill team. There was a big Horus Heresy narrative event going on. So the majority of the sort of bigger tables were taken with that. So we were able to get onto sort of probably 3 foot by 3 foot Sector Mechanicus board. And so we thought multiplayer kill team would be a great way to go.
And that's still bigger than a standard kill team board, right?
It is.
Yeah,
it is. So they put rules out. GW put rules out for 3 or 4 player kill team,
right?
In one of the annuals or some time ago, and what they said there was that the 2 of the regular kill team boards, so 22 by 30, I think, you would put 2 of those next to each other to basically make what is currently a 500.40k board.
Got you.
And play on that.
So the board and patrol.
Board and actions size board. Sorry, no, not board and actions, because
board
that's
patrol.
Board and patrol. Exactly right. Board and actions is on like a slightly weirdly shaped board.
Yeah,
that's different. Anyway, so we were playing on this board, and just a fantastic experience. So I had my compendium orcs, who aren't great, but I just really like playing them because I like painting them.
Same ones that I played against.
That's right.
Great, yeah.
There's like a second edition orc in there and a couple of second edition grots. So they're fun. And my friend Jamie, he was playing with some custodies. So you only get like 4 guys.
Yeah.
But they've got like 18 and 19 wounds. So they hang around for a while.
Is Jamie the same guy that you played Aeronautica with?
Yes.
Yeah,
yep.
nice.
Same guy. No, sorry. At the club, that was Ben. I have coincidentally recently also played Jamie at Aeronautica, but you didn't know that.
No, I didn't.
That would have been amazing if you'd figured that out.
Yeah.
And Josh was bringing his what you looking at? Josh was playing his Kroot. So it's the
Kinstalker,
the Farstalker Kin Band.
Yeah,
I think that's what they're called.
Kinstalker Forband,
something like that. Yeah. But it was just great. It was fantastic. It was like so it was a really close game as far as it goes. So it was like 11 to 8 to 8. But just the experience of being in the gaming hall, in amongst like this massive tournament that was going on in the background. So it was like sort of interesting to see that. And I don't know. I think you sort of like, the hobby is, not necessarily about endpoints. It's about doing. It's about like, you paint not necessarily to get to somewhere, but because of the process is fun in itself. And the same with games. You get good at games or better at games, not necessarily to be the best, but just because of the experience. All of that said, when you're playing in like the gaming hall at Warhammer World on like amazing, it was a Sector Mechanicus board, so there was like 2 or 3 stories. So normal games are played on like either a paper board or a mat, which is great. But when the whole board is terrain, not great to roll dice on. You do need a dice tray, but it does just help with that level of immersion. It just makes it cool. It just makes it so cool. And like we were just like looking at each other like daft idiots for the first 2 turns, going, "This is class. This is class." So it's like for all it's not about like getting to an endpoint. It did feel like playing a game at Warhammer World was like, this is a good reason to have done all that painting and all of that playing that's got you to the point of knowing the rules and blah blah blah. Just absolutely fantastic. We then had some food and Bugman's, which was better than I expected, actually.
Really?
Not too bad. And then went round the exhibition, which is it's completely incredible.
Was it?
It's the second time round. Have you been down?
Never.
I mean, it's amazing. It's partly it's amazing because the things that are amazing about it for me are that you're seeing, particularly at the start of it, and not wanting to give too many spoilers in case you or anybody else goes down, but you're seeing stuff, like little dioramas by Mike McVeigh that you've seen advertising games like Space Crusade or Space Hulk or whatever, in the early 1990s, but they're there. And it's basically like somebody's taken one of your childhood memories, put it in a glass cabinet, lit it very nicely, and you can go and look at it for like £7. As another thing, as far as GW goes, of everything that GW flogs in the whole world, £7 to go around the exhibition and look at all this amazing stuff.
How big is it?
So there's a big room for Age of Sigmar, which has probably got like let's say 7 big dioramas in it. The same for 40k. / Horus Heresy. I think they're all in the same room. Some astonishing stuff with Titans. Some absolutely astonishing stuff with Titans. There's one super famous diorama, which like I don't know the numbers, and it's got like thousands of miniatures in it. It's basically like the Ultramarines are being stormed at the top of this mega cathedral, and they've actually got it in like a stairwell.
Yeah.
So I'm giving myself up here for not knowing the name of this battle this is coming from, but whatever. There's some Ultramarines. There's like defilers climbing over the top of this thing. It's massive. It's on like a double height stairwell.
Is it meant to be Calth?
It's not Calf. It's something else. It's not Heresy. It's era. It's like 40k era.
All right. Okay.
But yeah, it's just astonishing. The whole thing's astonishing. There's like, you've seen good painting, but then there's something amazing about seeing like the miniatures that you know well if you've bought a codex or if you've bought an army book or whatever it is. There's some of the old world stuff still there. You're like, that's the actual miniature. That's the Gilliman or that's the this, and it looks incredible. And you're like, I know that Darren Latham's painted that, or I know that somebody's done this.
Darren Latham's a beast, isn't he?
So yeah, just absolutely fantastic experience, to be honest. And we came back from that, all agreed, what an amazing day, and just like your sort of like hobby bottle had been completely topped up.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why I've been painting. Yeah, get yourself down to Warhammer World, man. Maybe that's like why I've sort of been painting a fair bit the last little while. But just a fantastic experience, a great game, and Kill Team worked really good as a game because the mental load isn't as big as like 40k or just there isn't as much stuff that you need to do. Narratively, it worked really well. I think the game came down basically to one custodian. Instead of sitting on the point, he like nipped up some stairs, tried to take out a Kroot, missed or fluffed it. That Kroot then nipped on to take the point and took the objective at the end of the game. And that was basically like how the game sort of went. Really
good. Yeah, awesome.
Absolutely fantastic. So so everything else that I could say is going to pay out a little bit in comparison to that. But elsewhere, I have also been playing some Underworlds, particularly at the club at West Allotment Wildlands.
Yeah.
So I painted my Ari's Purifiers, and I got to play with them.
And you did eyes. They look great,
Yeah. Cheers. They're great models, and they play really nicely. I mean, there's not a huge amount of rerolls in Underworlds, not compared to some games, but like so they each have one reroll per model for the game, and there's some shenanigans where you can swap them around and do different things. But yeah, just having re-rolls, they're only 3 wounds each, so which is hardly any for Underworld. They die very easily, but having that re-roll kind of like mitigates against that. And I was playing against Josh's Slanesh. What are they called? It's the other guys off the Diachasm book. The Dead Pageant or the Dread Pageant.
Dread Pageant, yeah.
And their whole thing is about there being so many wounds taken between both sides, and then they all inspire, and that's their sort of secret thing. So they want to take wounds on themselves. Exactly. They want to take wounds on themselves and you in order for them to, do their business.
To flip.
But yeah, really good game. Just still enjoying Underworlds.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah.
And playing with like a new faction that was new to me, just like gives a bit of extra
Keeps
flavor
it fresh.
to that.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I was meant to be having a game of Frostgrave, so that didn't happen. My opponent wasn't able to make it, and these things happen, and that's fine. But that did at least get me into writing a list for Frostgrave.
Yep.
And thinking about like how I want that to work. So I'm going with an illusionist.
Yeah, man.
So loads of movement shenanigans. So looking through the spells. Lots of things where you can swap 2 guys around.
Does the illusionist have the wall?
I don't think so. Is that a sigilist? I don't know. I'm probably wrong.
Very good.
You can just plop a wall down. Yeah.
Very good.
The illusionist has got Fool's Gold, which it probably doesn't reflect on me well that this appeals to me. But like when somebody else picks up some treasure, you can just like cast a spell and treasure isn't theirs anymore, and it scatters 4 inches or something like that. It's obviously going to be very annoying towards the end of the game. But Frostgrave is something I'm definitely looking to play some of.
Yeah.
Super elegant system. I think I said before, like you roll 1d20, and then so does the other person that you're attacking, or vice versa. And that kind of determines everything.
Yeah.
A lot of things happen from one dice roll, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. that's it for games played. But yeah, get down to Warhammer World.
Yeah.
Let's do a road trip or something.
Yeah,
because
man.
it was, yeah, it'll. There's just so much stuff to sort of like just eye candy to marvel at.
Yeah.
And to see people playing in the gaming hall, playing like a narrative event. I mean, the place has got like it's part of a sculpted castle around the outside of it.
All right.
It's kind of a bit ridiculous and over the top, but then these things are. But yeah, just a great experience.
Yeah, does sound it.
Anyway, talking of Games Workshop,
yeah,
should we fire into this exciting new segment that we're proposing?
Yes, let's do it.
So I can probably lead on from what I was just talking about there. So the segment is Good GW, Bad GW. Everyone knows that if you want anyone to watch or listen to you, then you need to be talking about Games Workshop.
Yeah.
And we do a fair bit anyway, but just to make sure that we're definitely talking about Warhammer every episode, we're going to do this piece where we're perhaps lightly satirizing the fact that, people maybe put a little too much store in what this one company is doing in the hobby, possibly. Some people have like whole YouTube channels about it, despite not being happy about it, not naming any names.
Nope.
So anyway, what we're going to do every episode is we're either going to give Games Workshop a waggle of our finger or a pat on the back.
Okay.
What have they done to you personally, Daryl, that has been, an attack, I don't know, an aggression, or has made your life wonderful this month?
So, something that I'm frustrated about that I've just learned today from somebody in our Discord is that Flesh Eater Coats now 40k. I know I dump on quite a lot. Age of Sigmar is a fantastic game, by the way. So I don't just hate GW, it's just 40k. And Age of Sigmar is a fantastic game, very interesting game, plays really well competitively. And I've been really excited by the Flesh Eater Coats releases. I don't know if you've seen any of them, but they look so good.
I have seen them. They've just been released. There's like the big massive guy, which is basically like
who's a new Mortark
centerpiece.
Yeah. But so actually, do you know? I don't know if you've seen it, but my favorite sculpt, and I can't believe how on their head they actually got a sculpt that fits the theme of an army so well. I don't think they've ever in any system ever done it before. So there's a judge.
I was gonna say, yeah.
There's a judge. His gavel is a bone, and his wig is intestines, and that just fits that completely dislodged from reality sort of nobility, false nobility, sort of
delusions
fever
of grandeur,
dream
isn't it?
that they're living in.
That's their whole thing.
Yeah, and I'm just blown away by them, and I'm already like saving and planning my army and this, that, and the other. And I thought, all of these new releases, surely that crap set of models, which you need quite a lot of, is going to get updated. That being ghouls.
Okay,
ghouls have been around since the old world days. Still exactly the same, and they're okay models, but compared to all of the new stuff, they're gonna stand out by a mile. I can't believe they wouldn't do a resculpt of ghouls. I just feel like it's insane because it's something that you need a lot of. They've shown that they can resculpt Death Rattle skeletons. They've resculpted zombies. They both came out absolutely amazing. There's no reason not to.
Okay, so it's a waggle of your finger at Games Workshop for not doing new ghouls.
Amazing job. So for all of the Flesh Eater Coat stuff that's been teased, ghouls, man, come on, just fix them.
Okay, sort your ghouls out. I'm giving Games Workshop a big thumbs up just for the staff at Warhammer World. I'm going back to Warhammer World.
Yeah.
And being a bit silly with this segment and stuff, but something that I do think is the case is people talk about Games Workshop as if it was like one monolithic entity, one thing.
It kind of is, though, isn't it? It's a bit of a beast.
No, sorry,
GW as an
People talk about it as if it was a person.
Yeah, it's Skynet.
No, it's like it's a group of people.
James Workshop.
It's a group of people that, like, some people towards the top of the organization are making decisions which then have an impact on all sorts of other things, and that's fine. But yeah, people are like, oh, GW did this, GW did that. Well, somebody somewhere at GW did, and then everyone else agreed with it, and then they did a thing. But yeah, just the staff at Warhammer World were like, yeah, just the customer service was amazing. They were like super enthused about what was going on, and I'm talking about the people who like meet you at reception, talking about the people who sort your table out when you're trying to figure out where you're meant to be playing, the people who are in the shop and who are like letting you into the exhibition and all of this. And it was that lovely thing of where customer service is really good, but not like pushy, like it can be in certain stores when you go in and the first question immediately is what you're working on. And you're like, aha, the code word. Yeah, just really excellent. Just and I guess it probably makes sense that they would have some of their, I don't know, better or most excellent staff working at the, sort of like, at the flagship place. That makes sense. But yeah, it just helps.
Do you think it's like Willy Wonka? Like if you do really well in a GW store, you get the golden ticket and get to work at Warhammer World.
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, effectively, Warhammer World is just the Warhammer store for Nottingham.
Just a massive one.
Just a big one. Yeah. So yeah,
instead of a few foam hills on the table, you've got essentially just a treasure trove.
A lot. But yeah, it was just a salutary reminder that like all companies are just like a mixture of people.
Absolutely.
And
some good, some bad.
And I guess it must be, I don't know, must be kind of dispiriting when the company's getting slated and you're working for them. But you know, it's just a few people that are like really making decisions that have massive impacts, I guess.
I think there's a lot of decisions that get made, or maybe things that don't make sense to people as well. I know there's a lot of things where people get really arsy about production.
Yeah.
Of things, under production, things like that. So I think that's something that we can give them a wag for the finger about, because the Legionis Imperialis stuff sold out really, really quickly. They oversold on the web store. They had to pull some promised orders to local game stores.
Happened again, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah.
No.
Finger.
Yeah, but so something that I think a lot of people can't conceptualize is that AOS 3 is due out next year, I think. The boxes for that, even though we don't know about them, are already in production.
Yeah, they'll be printing it.
Yeah, and so things sometimes come a year or two in advance. So for 10th edition, that'll have been being made for a year or two in advance.
Yeah.
So it's not quite the same as, they've got the forges on for a couple of weeks and everything's sorted. You know, it's there's a lot of logistics involved in a global campaign, with synchronized release dates and things like that. It's not quite as easy. So fair comment to them. It's not just a case of we didn't have the presses running for long enough or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I know they had problems with like rule books, because I think they get their books printed in China and then get them sent over. So the literature stuff gets printed there, but then the models get made in England. So having all of that come together, get it shipped over and then packaged and all that kind of stuff gets difficult too.
Whilst maintaining an always cheery tone on the Warhammer community website, where everything's great and everything's fantastic.
Yeah.
It must be. I don't know, what's the comparison? I can't think of a comparison job, but just having to have that permanent sort of like rictus grin on your face as you're typing things out about like, oh, this is great.
Everything's fantastic.
Everything's
amazing, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, there we go. Good old GW.
Yeah. Good and bad GW. Well done and bad on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. So into the main topic. So we're talking about hobby gear. We're talking about the good, the bad, and the stuff that we haven't tried yet. We've been doing this between us for a considerable bunch of years. And yeah, we've definitely probably picked up some amount of wisdom and experience. But like I was saying before, it's interesting. Everybody hobbies differently and uses different tools and products.
Absolutely, yeah.
And all of that's fine.
Mileage may vary.
So get in touch with us after this, definitely, and tell us why we're wrong.
Yeah.
Or what great product we've missed out, or whatever. But and also it's worth mentioning, I did reach out to some friends on the West Allotment Wildlings Discord.
We did.
And on Instagram, just for some suggestions about what one thing people have bought or acquired, which has had the biggest impact on their sort of hobbying life. So first of all, we're going to run through each of our top 5 mega amazing hobby gear game changers.
We are.
We'll both get our phones out to remind ourselves what we've picked.
We've done this in secret.
And then we'll just have a run through, paints, brushes, glues, base and stuff, all of that.
So how are we going to do this? So we're going to go from 1 to 5. You do your 1, then I do my 1. Then you do your 2, then I do my 2. Or we're going from 5 to 1.
Well, I haven't put mine in order.
Oh, right. Okay.
Mine isn't like mine is just 5 things. Have you?
Okay.
Have you?
So
Is your number 1 better than your number 5?
I haven't, but I am going to read from top to bottom, and then if any clash, then we'll just find out on the way.
Well, look, why don't you do yours?
Should we do one each?
You do all of yours, and
All of mine.
if I've got any of yours, I'll shout bingo or something.
Right.
And
Okay.
and then we'll take it from there.
Right. So, number 1, a bloody good brush. We'll talk a little bit about brushes and brands later.
Okay.
My preference is Raphael 844. I think if you find a good large brush with a big belly and a sharp point, it makes you it gives you the best chance that you can of doing well with painting because you're not fighting with the brush. It also teaches you a bit of well, it should teach you a bit of control, because you don't want to just slap stuff on because you'd be at risk of damaging your nice expensive brush. And it teaches you a little bit about brush cleaning as well, doesn't it? Because maintenance of your brush afterwards.
Yeah. Got to have a good brush.
Bloody good brush.
Do you remember then when you moved? Did you have like a sort of moment of Damascene enlightenment when you moved from like not good brushes to like one really good brush, and you were like, "Whoa, this is the way."
Yeah, kind of. So I had for all the many years that I painted prior to, so maybe about 10 years ago, I started buying decent brushes, and before that, it was just GW ones that I got in sets.
Yeah,
I used some Army Painter ones that I had got, as like a sort of a gift. I had used Art Shop, or like buy a packet of 20 of them from Wilco's sort of crap. And then I, as a treat to myself, because I started to get into the not just painting things so that they're painted and painting things so that they maybe look good, I bought myself some Winsor & Newton Series 7s.
Right.
And they are decent brushes. I find them a bit soft for my liking. They don't have as much snap as I like. And from there, got a little bit of a fetish to buying nicer brushes and seeing how I get on. The overarching champion being, of course, 844s, but I have tried a good few brands now. So yeah, I think about 10 years ago I made a switch. I know there's lots of chat to be had about animal cruelty and things like that, and it is a bit of a feels bad thing.
Yeah.
And I have tried a lot of synthetic, semi-synthetic, all that kind of stuff, and you just can't get the same feel. However, I did find, as a synthetic option, the Green Stuff World green synthetic brushes to be very good.
Yep.
They just, as all synthetics do, end up with a hook tip.
Yep.
And they're knackered.
Yeah. I would echo that as well. Yeah. I've tried the Green Stuff World synthetic brushes, and they are definitely better. They're like, if you want something for painting metallics or something like that, where it's probably not great for a really nice brush.
Absolutely.
But you want a bit more control than like a bog standard synthetic brush, and those are definitely worth a look. But yeah, there's nothing like a good stable brush, really.
Yeah.
And those brands are some of the ones which make those.
Yeah. And I suppose as an attachment to that, it wasn't on my list, but some Masters brush soap, which is all part of the same thing.
Yeah.
For brush maintenance. So sorry, that's a sixth.
All right.
And an adjacent.
That's fine. Go for it. What's up?
Next is a wet palette.
Bingo.
Nice. Good one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people have said this, that we were sort of having chats about. I mean, it is a massive game changer.
It doesn't make you a better painter, but it makes your workflow easier.
Yeah, it gives you a chance of being better.
Exactly. It definitely makes your workflow easier. I think it gets you used to thinning your paints because it sort of does it by proxy anyways.
Yeah.
And it just helps with not having that battle where you end up inevitably loading your brush with some paint that's a little bit too dry now, and then you overpaint a little bit because it comes off in a big blob, and then you get frustrated, and then blah blah blah. It takes a lot of that stuff out. It also means that you can put the lid on it, walk away, go have a cup of tea, come back. It's still ready to use, and you're not
What's
wasting.
the longest amount of time you've come back to paints on a wet palette and had a go at using them again?
48 hours, I think. Yeah, 48 hours, because I don't think...
Sometimes I do that just to see
what happens.
Probably
Yeah.
it's not going to be as good. I should get more paint out, but I just want to see if it'll work.
Changed a lot since I've changed brand, and we'll talk about that later. But so the brand that I use now, very hydrophilic, and they over dilute very quickly on a wet palette. So I tend to run my wet palette a bit drier.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for anyone that doesn't use a wet palette, well, first of all, have you got a homemade job or
no? Green Stuff World one, nice and cheap. I think it was about 15 quid. It's the big one. It comes with. It's just a rip off a Redgrass Games one essentially, but you get a couple of spare bits of foam. So you get 3 bits of foam in it, I think, and then like 30 sheets of the paper that goes on it. But essentially, it's a Tupperware, with, for lack of better description, with a bit of sponge in it that you put some greaseproof paper on top, and a base
baking parchment.
Sorry,
greaseproof paper. You want some osmosis going on.
You do, yeah. You want to create a concentration gradient.
That's it. So yeah, just not to be so greaseproof paper. If it's waterproof, will stop the water coming through.
Precisely.
So what we're looking for is.
But greaseproof paper is only waterproof in one direction, isn't it?
Is it? So if you put it the right way around, it'd be okay.
I don't know.
I haven't tried.
Talking on my backside. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, that I think is really good. A cool little tip that I learned, which I'm going to be applying to mine.
We're always giving value here.
Yeah. Put a load of pennies underneath it.
Stops it molding.
Stops it from getting mouldy, which is something that can happen.
And when you do all British pennies have copper in them?
Pass.
Okay. Well,
you can get copper tape if you want to spend some more money. You can get copper tape to do it, which is, I think, the preferable way to do it. But
I've had that problem once where it went mouldy, and then it never has done again. I've also heard put a tiny bit of fairy liquid in.
Oh, right, okay.
Or other washing
some surfactant
available.
Yeah.
But yeah, wet palette,
fantastic. Yeah.
I mean, if you're not using one, go on YouTube and find out how to make one very easily.
Very easy. And I think I used a homemade one for probably about 3 years, and it worked absolutely fine. I just happened to go into a local game store and there was one there, and I was trying to support it, so I was like, I'll buy one.
Yeah, sure. So this might be a theme. I'm still on the homemade one. I'm keeping things
just
cheap.
Like your dice tray.
Yeah.
Which you kindly put some foam in for me. I was very happy about.
So I just like to have lots of uses for Tupperware, dice trays. I mean,
palette,
it doesn't look flash,
sandwiches,
but it does the job. Anyway, what's next?
Next is a good set of flush cutters. So they're the nippers that you take things from sprues with. The GW ones that you can get, and the sort of like the ones that you get in cheapy hobby kits. They're usually the blue handled plastic clippers, are very big, not very sharp, and they cause a lot of stress to the plastic around.
They sometimes don't chop the plastic, they squeeze it into different shapes.
Precisely, and that's not really good for the plastic, and it just makes cleanup a bit difficult and things like that.
Okay. So is this as well as a sort of
no, instead of
so this is your one snipper to rule them all,
unless you're using metal,
right? Yeah,
then I just use a pair of the cheapy ones for metal. So if you're playing Infinity or whatever, I've got metal miniatures. But yeah, so Redgrass Games do some. The gold standard are called God Hand, the single blade ones. But you can also buy rip-offs on Amazon for about 15, 16 quid.
Are these God Hand ones, are these sort of for Gundam? Or is that like...
So people use them for Gundam. And the reason why people are so keen on them for Gundam is because they're so sharp and they cause no stress to the plastic.
Yeah.
It's really important because you don't paint Gundams. They're just clipped from the sprue and put together. So as you'll have seen before, when you cut with crap cutters, it creates that white sort of streaky appearance on the plastic. It doesn't happen with good clippers, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I've had some of the sort of old GW metal handed clippers.
With the reddy brown sort of...
The reddy brown. And they, when I first got them, they were pretty good. They're not pretty good now. I had an incident trying to open take the security thing off a bottle of whiskey with them, and I had been drinking other drinks, which is why I did that. So they're completely knackered now. So I'm in the market for some new snippers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, have a go of mine before you leave, but they're just so much more pleasant to use. And it was a bit of a joke at the club. We did a charity day, and John one of the lads from Club rocked up with this sort of fishing tackle box full of like, and I mean, some of them looked like he had been trying to take security tags off.
Lots of bottles.
Right, yeah. Okay. And I was just like, these are the nightmare. I'm trying to build models and like I'm making more work for myself. And then one of the lads plunked down a set of the Redgrass Scream stuff, and like we kind of shared them around, and people were like, because I'd never tried them before. Wow. And I was like, yeah, this is what you need to have, like you know, these and it feels like it's the kind of thing where you'll pay £6 or £7 for a crap pair or 15 quid for a good pair, and like just wait an extra month if you need to save or whatever.
Well, how much do you value your own time? Because the amount of cleanup that you're doing,
exactly,
you're not doing this hobby without cutting a lot of things off some sprues,
exactly,
probably. So it's massive difference
because they're flush cutters, they're completely flat and they're small. You can get into all the little nooks and crannies and get nice smooth cuts. So they are very high on the list for me.
Cool.
Super glue accelerator. If you are in the market for smaller games like I like, or use 3D printed miniatures, things like that, Super Glue Accelerator saves you so much time and hassle. If you play Infinity, you'll know that for sure.
So it's not bingo, it's not a house, it's a line though, because I did have this in my sort of like other honourable mentions.
Yep.
Yeah, it's what a difference.
Oh my god, it is just.
Do you know of any like super glue in anything, whether it's metal or resin, is more likely to be the case for stuff that I would do. So are there any super glues which like dry a bit quicker or something? Because that, just having to hold it there. I mean, and the accelerator is fantastic for this, and it basically solves this problem. But like just having, to hold it there for ages, try not to move or breathe or something, because you're going to like ruin the connection point.
Not that I know of.
Yeah.
Not that I know of. I've got like vivid memories been in my head of trying to build Wolf God Terminators in like the late 90s with super glue, like a tube of Loctite, and everything was glued except for the miniature. So yeah, Super Glue Accelerator, unbelievable
massive
bit of
game
kit.
changer. I don't think like it doesn't like, well, to me what it seems like it does is it just it cures it enough that it will hold.
Oh no, instant. The stuff that I use is like instant set. But do you blow on it? So I usually just put some super glue on, close the joint so that I know where it's going, and just put a tiny little spray on it. And then if you blow on it, you see it like cloud up and just cure instantly.
Okay. I guess what I'm meaning is that where there's any super glue that's exposed to the air, you're going to see that cloud up. But then anything which is sort of like more into the join is probably going to, but it'll cure quick enough.
Oh yeah.
But the whole thing, overnight or whatever, is going to cure
rock hard. It probably
and it holds it in place effectively.
And it's less brittle. Than when you use normal. Just super glue on its own.
Okay, brilliant.
So yep, definitely recommend that. And the last one is an absolute hobby must for me, and I think you might agree with me now, is oil washers.
Bingo,
good man. Specifically, I've said for the faint of heart or the new oil user, save yourself some money. Don't have to go and buy special brands. Winsor & Newton Lamp Black, Winsor & Newton Burnt Umber. If you've got those two, you can do any wash that you need to do.
Pretty much. There you've got your known oil, and you've got your, well, it's not exactly Agrax, but it's brown.
Agrax-esque.
Yeah, and then you can, but just by mixing those two, you can go across this sort of spectrum.
Huge spectrum, and you can really take them down to the black goes down to almost a grey, and the you can almost get a sepia out of the burnt umber. But phenomenal bits of kit, and I think it's changed the way that I work in almost every project that I do.
Yep. So I did have that down, but I had it as sort of streaking grime or enamel washers / oil washers sort of grouped together, because the process or the application is pretty similar. So you're putting this stuff onto the model after at a certain point in the process, whether it's like you've done some base coated or whether you've like basically finished the thing. And then it's reductive method. So you apply using more like mineral spirits or white spirit or whatever to like clean it off. Well, you don't even need to use any of that. You can just
as long as it's not fully cured.
Take a bit of like an old knackered t-shirt that you've chopped up or something and just like wipe it off. Then, and that's going to leave it pretty grimy, depending again on how much you've diluted the oils or the Streaking Grime. So the first one that I got was AK Interactive, and that was a game changer.
Great. Yeah.
Because I was painting a Necron army, and I more or less just painted them silver, and then slapped all this on. And with these products, the way that it dries is just more natural and more natural-esque, or whatever the right word is. It looks, more representative of the grime and dirt in the real world than known oil or acrylic washes, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't have the risk of those hot, nasty sort of tea stains and things like that.
Yeah. All right, that's the top 5. Brilliant. So I'll go with the few that I've got, which you haven't mentioned. Number 1 that I put down, and this is something that Liam, fellow member of West Allotment Wildlands, had said, and it's absolutely, I agree completely. Is it an actual hobby space?
Yeah.
So this isn't a product that you can go out and buy, but having somewhere that's sort of permanently set up where all you need to do is sit down, get some paints out, get some paintbrushes out, that isn't also a dining table, that isn't preferably a work table. I mean, I work from home, and it's the same desk.
I'm kind of in that, but I've got a bit of separation. Yeah.
It's basically the same desk, but I've got all my paints like on some shelves, and they're ready to go, and all the hobby stuff's in a drawer, and it can come out, and it's all happening very quickly. Just having that sorted gets rid of this massive barrier, which might not seem like a massive barrier.
It is. But it's not the first couple of times you do it. But when you do it 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, the build up and tear down of the space is a pain in the backside.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, you've been talking about hobby motivation.
Yeah.
If you're on the borderline of like whether you've got the motivation to do hobby stuff, and you've got to do 3 things before the space is ready.
Clear the kids' homework up, and then give it a wipe down, and then make sure you don't spill any paint anywhere, because you're going to get
It's not going to happen, is it?
No.
Okay. Number 1.
Well done, Liam. That was a really good suggestion.
Yeah, great suggestion, and it's absolutely right. So for my next one, I'm going for another AK interactive thing, but Ultramatte Varnish.
Oh yeah, you put me onto this. It is great.
It's great stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of an amazing product because of how matte it is.
Yep.
It's called Ultramatte. They're not.
But it's ultra matte. It's really yeah.
And why I like it, or why it was such a sort of game changer, is because partly when contrast paints came out, and I found myself painting, a lot of miniatures which would have some contrast paints on them, some different contrast paints on them, and then some more traditional opaque paints, and then some metallics, and so you get like a lot of different finishes across the model. And it's only a small thing, but like the eye, either consciously or subconsciously, totally notices it.
Yeah.
And what you're looking at is a painted. Well, what you're looking at, you realize it's a painted miniature rather than the thing that it's meant to represent.
Yeah.
And it, breaks the fourth wall or whatever. So you put this stuff on, and it just gives the whole miniature the same finish, which is very matte, which I generally probably prefer.
I like,
rather than satin, or certainly not so much gloss. But I do prefer things very matte, partly because if you are going to take a picture of them, it's sort of like, I find it helps a lot. Not to have weird bits of reflective light coming off.
I think it makes light look more natural, doesn't it?
I think there's that, just fantastic stuff.
Love it.
Really great.
Love it.
It comes in a bottle, and I'm still in the first one I ever bought. It lasts forever.
I bought a bottle, you can see over there, but I've still got the little dropper that you gave us. Yeah.
And
I've used it on quite a few bits.
I'm sure it goes for an airbrush fantastically.
It does, that's why I use it on,
Yeah. I paint it on, and it goes on fine, and it doesn't look like it's been brushed on. Obviously it would be quicker if I had an airbrush, but yeah, fantastic stuff. Next I've got a hairdryer.
That is a good shout.
An honest to goodness hairdryer. My hobby desk is quite close to where my partner's getting ready desk, so yeah, she wouldn't be listening to this, whatever. So yeah, I use her hairdryer, and it's a pretty good hairdryer. But like if you're using, depends what paints you're using, but just generally reduces the drying time of anything. If you're working on one model in particular, rather than like batch painting, army painting, it reduces the drying time down to like a couple of seconds.
Yep.
You do want to be a bit careful about blasting it too hard, so that you're actually pushing paint or wash or contrast paint, probably more so with your like more fluid paints into a particular direction. You don't want to do that. You just want it to dry. but yeah, it just speeds up the not having to wait any
Be
time.
very careful with resin miniatures as well.
Yeah,
Makes resin floppy.
Yeah. Be careful with plastic miniatures as well. I was just going to come on to the other reason I use it, other than just making paint dry quick, is when putting on decals or transfers.
Yeah, got you.
So I know, like, some people might be listening to this and saying microsol and microset, because that's what you're meant to use when you put transfers on. All I've ever done with transfers, and I can't remember who I heard this off. I think it might have been Andy Burdis, Andy from Blackjack Legacy YouTube channel. Just put your transfer on wherever it's going to be. Don't bother varnishing, no gloss varnish, no nothing, and just hair dry it hot enough that it melts the transfer into place, but doesn't melt the model. I've got an apothecary with like some wonky bits where like, but I learned I learned this on. But it really will do the same thing. I assume that like Microsol does in terms of like melting the transfer. Yeah. Particularly if you're thinking about Space Marine shoulders. They've got that curved surface. Yeah. You need it to conform to the surface.
Totally. Yeah.
You melt it enough with a hairdryer, then you can just sort of like put it into place with like a cotton tip. Yeah. And you're good to go.
Nice. And
you can dry your hair with it afterwards.
At the same time.
And then lastly, I've got makeup brushes. And again, so this is cheap makeup brushes. And this is all about just dry brushing, basically.
Yeah. And they're definitely fit for purpose and very budget friendly, aren't they?
So, yeah, you can buy like a packet of 10 or whatever for like a few pounds off eBay. The one that you want, or the ones that you want, is anything with like a domed tip. So like, I'm no makeup artist, but evidently within the world of makeup, there's like a need for brushes of all sorts of weird, wild shapes.
And so, yeah.
Most of them are no use. Really, the ones that you want are the domed tips. And what these are...
You always get like one or two in a pack, don't you?
Exactly. Yeah. The rest of them is like, oh well. I wonder if my
the
partner's
big
got any...
ones,
I don't know what's that. Yeah, that's no use to anyone. But yeah, and technique-wise, I do tend to kind of copy a lot of the things which like Byron will talk about. Who they've got his own, the Artis Opus
channel,
range of fancy dry brushes. I've never found the need to sort of like, graduate from cheap makeup brushes to anything much fancier. So the key things are just keep it a little bit moist, don't have it dry out, and that avoids the chalkiness. Yeah. So have like a dampening pad or something similar. Yeah. Have something that you can like practice on. So like I know a lot of people use make like a texture pad out of like old sprues or whatever, or just have a bit of old sprue lying around so you can see how the paint's going to go onto the model. But yeah, cheap makeup brushes for dry brushing. Yeah, a massive game changer, and yeah, they get used on a lot of stuff. And if you get it just right, if you get just the right amount of moisture on the brush, the sort of edge highlighting that you can do, is particularly on like a vehicle or something, is great. And you can almost use, I find you can almost use that to like lay down the edge highlight and then go back with like as a chunky edge highlight. Yeah. And then go back with a smaller brush afterwards. Yeah. To really sort of try and sharpen it up. And that can be a really effective.
Yeah,
work.
Absolutely.
Okay. So totally agree. Top fives. Done. So we've got a few categories of things to talk about. We'll probably sort of like skip anything that we've talked about much already. Sure. But yeah, shall we have a run through this? I mean, probably makes sense to start with paints. They're kind of important. Have you got any ranges that you're really liking or disliking?
Yeah.
Who does the best contrast or contrast type of paint? Best metallics? Go for it.
As a range in general, Pro Acryl or by Monument Hobbies are far and away my favourites. It's a range that I am happy with everything that they do. There's varying degrees of sort of like styles of paints they've got, but everything that they've got is like adequately labelled to be like what it is. So they've released some heavy bodied paints that are called heavy body. They've released some satins that are called satins with different finishes. So but I just think they're vibrant. The medium that they use is thin, almost to the point where it's like pre-thinned for you.
They are thin paints,
but with still loads of opacity and really good coverage. They do hands down the best white in the game.
Yeah, I mean that that's a category all by itself, isn't it? And the bold titanium white, it is amazing. It's an amazing
It
paint.
really is. So yeah, but the metallics are starting to win me over. I really like their bronzes, and I really like some of their higher end golds. There is no gold in the world for me like Necro Gold by Scale 75, though. I think that is the single best gold paint.
Okay. So metallic wise, I haven't got any scale 75 paints, but I hear a lot of people say how great their metallic range is in general, or just the golds are the same.
So I think people do like their metallics in general. They use a gel medium instead of a normal acrylic medium, which is strange. It's a bit thicker than your average, so I use a little bit of acrylic thinner in it.
See, I like that. I like a paint to come out pretty thick, but to thin down a lot. And as much as I do really enjoy
Pro
acryl, but so the bold titanium white. So is that a heavy body painting? Because that to me comes out a lot thicker than like some of the other ones.
Does it? You haven't got the heavy bold titanium white, have you?
I don't think so. But yeah, I think that it's not a problem. But like the Monument Hobbies Pro Acryl range being pre-thinned, I think if I had an airbrush, it would be genius because
I still thin it for an airbrush. It's not thin enough for an airbrush outlet.
Okay, but I think I like paints to be a bit thicker than that, or a bit more gel than that when they go out onto the wet palette. But still great paints.
And that is the brand that I was talking about being the hydrophilic brand. So run with a slightly drier wet palette. Otherwise, they attract a lot of water and get over thinned.
So what percentage of your painting is pro acryl then?
Is 90%,
really?
90%. So I mean, so everything on those two stands there is what I paint with day to day, and the only sort of changes to that is if I paint silvers, I use Vallejo Metal Color, which is their airbrush range, the liquid alcohol based, but very, very thin and insane coverage. It's really, really good, which is those ones on the top there.
That's the bigger bottles, right?
Yeah.
Are they alcohol based?
Yeah, they're alcohol based. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have some pastels from AK Interactive. They're very nice. And I've got
is that third gen?
The third gen AK Interactives, and I can't say they're the best pastels in the world because they're the only ones that I've got.
Okay.
So I genuinely don't
just talking about the tone of the.
Yeah. So it's there's pastel green, pastel yellow, pastel. It's that desaturated but quite opaque. Yeah. Nice.
Looks like you could do a shabby chic chair with it, kind of.
Totally. Yeah. Or paint some mini eggs. Yeah. So that too.
Cool.
And for speed paints, contrasts, that kind of thing. Excuse me. I use Vallejo Express paints, so I find them to be much nicer than contrast in finish and the way they work. But I am very Army Painter Speed Paint 2.0 curious.
Yep, and they've just come up with some metallics. So I've just seen a review.
Yeah, they've been around for a little while, but
by Vince. I don't know if Vince
Venturella
done a reformulation or anything, or if it's just the same ones they've had for a little while.
I think they've added a couple of colours to the range.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah.
Cool. Any GW paints which are still holding the line, which you haven't quite found a sort of a replacement for, or that you still hold a place close to your heart?
So currently, because I haven't bought them yet, I'm using still for some woods. I use not dryad bark. Oh God, what's it called? Saigo brown. The contrast.
Yep.
Saigo brown and Gorgrunter fir. The red, brown, and the dark brown. But Express Colour have just released those two colours as well. But like I say, I'm really curious because I feel like the Speed Paint 2.0 range has got great opacity. They've got a really good range of colours, and they've got a nice matte finish. And I think that's all the things that I like.
Yeah.
I don't like contrast because for a couple of reasons. One, I find it pools quite a lot, and then you end up with like a skin that if you pull it off, it leaves that horrible stain.
Yeah, I haven't often babysit it to sort of stop that happening.
Yeah. And that shine that we talked about earlier. Yeah.
I mean, I'm bigging up AK Interactive Ultramap. It's solving a problem that, like, with other paints you wouldn't have in the first place necessarily.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right, cool. To add to that, I haven't got a huge amount. I'm going to say, though, a massive shout out for Vallejo model color 70.950 black. It's the best black I've ever used.
Really?
It's very, very matte. It's quite thick as it comes out, so it feels gel-ish. I don't imagine it's a gel medium.
No.
I mean, I don't know enough about the chemistry, but it's an acrylic paint. It thins down brilliantly. It covers brilliantly. Like, doing base rims with it is amazing. It's absolutely spot on.
I really want you to take that bottle of Chimera Black with you and try it, because I didn't mention my favorite black Chimera. The I think it's called the Black. It's
the boy.
So good, but for all the reasons that you've just said.
Yeah.
Great coverage, thicker body, thins down a lot, but that it's really matte, and base rims just look unbelievable.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay, cool. I'll give that a go.
With Goblin Green base rims.
Yeah. I'm wondering whether or not to do War Master in Goblin Green base rims. No, not happening.
I'm not.
All right.
You do it. You do you.
I'll do me.
Yeah.
A couple of other mentions. The Too Thin Coats range.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have a huge amount of it, but I've got a few of them with the Kickstarter.
Yeah, nice.
Really, really good.
Good.
There's an ivory in there, which has become my sort of like go-to paint whenever I want something to be lighter, but you don't want to use white because it makes it
like an Ushabti Bone?
Lighter than that.
Lighter
than that.
Screaming Skull?
Yeah, probably there or thereabouts. But yeah, fantastic. And a couple of the metallics are really nice as well. There's a bronze, which I swapped out Sycorax bronze and started using this instead, and it's really good. And you can sort of tone it up a bit or down a bit to like make it a bit more coppery or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, lovely paint. And just a quick shout out for ancient paints. So the silver I'm using at the moment, notwithstanding how good the Vallejo Air range is, as you've mentioned.
It's not Vallejo Air, it's Vallejo metal color, because there is a Vallejo Air range, so it's Vallejo metal color. They are pitched as airbrush paints, but Vallejo Air and VMC are two different
paints. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, ancient paints. So I'm currently using old from, I don't know, 1995, something like that, GW chainmail.
Yes.
And it's somewhere in the region of lead belcher, probably a bit lighter.
Yeah.
But like it's survived the years beautifully. It goes on great. One coat is absolutely sufficient.
All you need.
And it's just a joy to use. Like, metallics can be tricky sometimes, they can either separate out, or they're not bound really well, or they're not as shiny as you want, or they're too shiny or whatever. This stuff is just what I want from a silver. So there we go. That's paints. One side note that I had on, do you think, where's the place for a vortex mixer?
I love it. I use mine on every paint that I use.
Okay.
I don't think it's a must, but it bloody saves an old wrist a lot of shaking, especially in some of the thicker body paints that have got the agitator in, because you'll find that. So one of the problems that I have with Pro Acryl
gets
first,
stuck sometimes.
yeah, I didn't realize Pro Acryl paints even had agitators in.
Right, okay.
With my first set ones that I bought, because I tried shaking this one for ages, and it was just so, because it's so
down.
pigment rich, it had got gunked down to the bottom. So I like them. Yeah.
All right, paints done. Brushes we've talked about a bit.
Yeah.
Anything else left to say?
Just Raphael A44 for me.
That's it. Job done.
Tried Artis Opus, wasn't a big deal. Got Rosemary & Co. Series 33s. They seem to be very long, which is strange.
Really long.
Yeah.
Really
I
long.
feel like I'm almost like away from the model when I'm painting with them, which I found very strange. But they're nice brushes. They're just a bit too long for me. I found the quality control of the Artis Opus Variety Series S not very good. I got the original Kickstarter and didn't buy any more after that. And then synthetics we spoke about, GSW I quite like.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one, I mean, we've mentioned Rosemary & Co. there. The one thing so Rosemary & Co. were the first nice brushes that I got.
Nice.
And it was a massive, massive difference in painting with, whatever GW brush you had or whatever. So I would absolutely recommend those. because they're really good value compared to pretty much any other sort of sable brush you can find. So yeah, Rosemary & Co. Series 33. If you're currently just using synthetic brushes, just get like a size 1 of those and see how you get on with it. They're fantastic for the absolutely for the price that they're coming in at. I don't know what it is, like £8 or something like that. Which is
almost half the price of some of the others.
A lot less than, especially Winsor and Newton. Miles less than that. We've talked about Super Glue Accelerator. Glues, what are you using?
I use Tamiya Extra Thin.
Okay.
I still use quite a lot of Revel, just because it's in the shop that's near us.
Yeah.
But yeah, just Colour Forge plastic glue.
Okay.
Good. Yeah. I think it's just the same sort of stuff that GW use.
Right.
But I do like Extra Thin for finer models because it's so thin, you can just use a bit of capillary action where you just push fit the two parts together. And then you touch it to the area and it just wicks into the gap and bonds, which is really cool. And I think, was that voted for by someone?
I think a lot of people, when we asked for suggestions, were mentioning Tamiya Extra Thin. I know Stephen was.
Yeah.
It's great stuff. It comes because the bottle's got like a little applicator built into it.
That's a bugbear of mine with it, by the way.
Not a fan of that?
No, because you can never get to the bottom.
So did you know?
You can pull the brush out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just still doesn't work very well.
No, it doesn't.
Because the second that you go near the bottom, it pushes the brush back on, and then you spend ages trying to pull it back down.
Yeah.
So I want to try Mr. Hobby, it's like a Japanese brand.
Yeah.
And they've just got like a solid brush and it reaches the bottom straight away, which is and a lot of people rate Mr. Hobby stuff.
I mean, I guess you could use like a sort of a knackered, like you couldn't use like a plastic brush. You'd need to use like a sable brush. It would feel pretty wild to put a sable brush in there. But like if you had like a super thin one that was knackered and had gone beyond service, you could use that. My solution to this problem was just to buy another bottle of Tamiya Extra Thin and just like top one up with the other. And now I've got 2 bottles that work of Tamiya Extra Thin. Did you see there's somebody that did a video because like the chemical formula is basically exactly the same as
the airbrush cleaner?
Airbrush cleaner. And Tamiya, I want to say, is it Tamiya airbrush cleaner or Vallejo airbrush cleaner? One of the two.
So chemically the same
Tamiya.
thing.
It's going to be Tamiya, isn't it? Chemically almost exactly the same. I think like one's 50%, one might be 49% of one of the other chemicals that's in it. But I've never been able to find that airbrush cleaner. I don't know if there's something about Tamiya products in the UK, but some of them are hard to find.
It's a Japanese brand, isn't it? So I don't know if it's,
Anyway, never been able to solve that.
Nope.
But yeah, it's amazing stuff. It doesn't, it is extra thin, especially on smaller models.
Yeah.
Fantastic stuff.
Don't buy the quick drying though. Because
I've made this mistake. What's it for? What's it actually for? Because it dries between the time that you take it out of the bottle and put it on them. It dries.
It dries, yeah.
I don't know what the application. I was wondering, is this for like sort of scale modeling or for some?
Probably something that we're not very good at.
So I was all up for some quick drying.
Yeah, me too.
But I didn't want it to be.
It smells nice, so it smells like biscuits. I don't know why. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't notice that. I didn't want it to be that quick drying. Anyway.
No.
Lessons learned. Okay, onwards and upwards. Basing stuff.
Yeah.
So broad category. What do you use for basing? What's good? What's not so good?
So your top of the top 2 things, top 3 things on the list, I use quite often.
Okay.
Vallejo Gaming Paste, very good. I also recently got some AK Interactive basing paste as well because they did like a Martian Red, and I did it for my Gene Sealer Cults for that.
Yep.
40k tournament that we did. Great, isn't it? It's just like some sand in some paint and probably some resin or something that sets really hard, but really good, fast, and you can do a bit of dry brushing and it looks really good.
And so much the Vallejo stuff is so much cheaper. You're getting so much more for your money.
Value wise, the Vallejo is 1,000 times better. It really is really affordable, isn't it?
I think it's about 8 times better, but hyperbole aside, it is really good stuff.
Indeed. Yeah.
And I mean, I've found that you can buy it in the color that you want, but it takes paint
very well.
So you can just paint over.
Yeah, I totally have done that. I've done both. So I've got one that's like really light sand that I bought for a Song of Ice and Fire army that was meant to be in a desert, and then sold that army, and I don't really have anything to use it for, but I've still got like 3/4 of it left. So then I just started whacking it on stuff and priming it, and it just is ground.
Yeah. And I haven't mentioned it previously when we were talking about paints, but like, yeah, GW do cop a lot of flack for their paint bottles with a flip cap, and I don't have as big a problem with it as some people, but I do have a problem with it when it comes to the texture pastes, the Armageddon dust or whatever they're all called, because it just any air in there at all and it dries up. So I've got like one thing of the Vallejo stuff and it's completely fine.
Yeah, it's screw top.
It's a screw top. Yeah. It seals. Air's not getting in there. So yeah, that's a big plus.
Definitely. Cool. And Geek Gaming base ready stuff is for the time frugal hobbyist is. I think you get big payoff for not much time investment.
Yeah.
It doesn't stand up to like really close scrutiny because you kind of, when you get really close, you do realize that he's used, or that the company's used some cheaper aggregates to make what it is. But at an army level, it looked great. I think some of the stuff that you got from Alex is based with it, right?
Yeah, and I think he uses the same stuff that I use, the Scrublands.
Scrublands, fantastic.
So for anyone that doesn't know, so Geek Gaming Base Ready is a range which is basically a bag of stuff.
It's mixtures of sand, grout, bits of flock, some pebbles of different sizes. But it's kind of just like a one-stop solution of put some glue on a base, whack the model into the thingy, give it a bit of a shh, and then you come out and it's a based miniature, and there's enough variance on that base that you don't have to paint it afterwards. It's just you've got different tones of sand or grit or texture and stones and greens and things added to it that it just looks interesting, visually interesting.
It does the randomization for you.
Exactly, just by actually being random.
There's enough different bits of stuff in the bag.
I don't know how you feel, but I often find when I'm trying to do it myself, when I try and be random, I end up
the human brain struggles with that.
No, I find it really difficult. And then I noticed with those do you see that called, because I put some green crystals on, trying to be random, put them in different places, it looked very intentional, and I was like, at the end I was a bit like, oh god, you know what I mean, I wish I hadn't done that now. But yeah,
fantastic stuff. And there's a whole variety of different sort of looks. There's one which looks quite Necron-y. It's like black with some green crystals in.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Yep.
Scrublands one's great. There's a New Zealand plains.
That's the one that I use quite often, very much like it. Yeah,
nice. So yeah, that stuff's great. Moving on, tufts. I mean, any tufts really, but like a fantastic range is by Gamer's Grass.
Any, but it's like Gamer's Grass are like up here, and then the rest feel like you don't need Gamer's Grass. We've got tufts at home.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And like even just from, so I've got quite a lot of ones from Geek Gaming, very affordable. You get loads in a packet.
It's all the same bit, mind, when you get those ones, or the ones that I've found anyway. It's just, you know, every tuft is exactly
the same. And actually, a lot of the stuff that's on the tufts, because I've got flowers and stuff, just falls off.
Right. Okay.
Whereas the Gamer's Grass stuff are really high quality. There's lots of variance in the heights and the stuff that's in it. You get like the loads of different shapes on the pad as well, don't you? And like I don't know if you've seen something like their cattails and things where I don't know how they've done it, but they've like managed to fray the ends of some of the fibers to make like, and they just look great.
So I'm looking forward to getting some of these to do Warmaster stuff,
because they do tiny versions,
tiny little 2 mil little patches of stuff.
Yeah.
So this is the same with the Geek Gaming stuff, but like the amount of impact you get for just like, you know, very no effort and no skill. Obviously, you're just gluing things to a base. It's fantastic, and it's sort of the realism that you can get is great. So yeah, big thumbs up for those.
Yeah.
Anything else that we like or dislike when it comes to base and stuff?
I do dislike cork. I know you've written that down. That's a bit of a meme in the club as well, but I hate Age of Sigmar's a game that I love, but there's like a fetish in Age of Sigmar where people just put like a 4-foot plinth of torn up cork to make things look more dynamic, and it just makes them look less dynamic to me. They all look like they're standing on top of
They look like they're standing on cork rather than Can it be done well, or are you just against it in principle?
I'm sure it can be done well, but I think if you just put a torn section of thin cork on top of a base, it doesn't do anything for the base.
Okay.
Especially when there's like bits hanging off the side of the base, and it literally just looks like you've put I don't know. I just think it can definitely be done well, but I think for models to look dynamic, they have to be interacting with the environment instead of just being in exactly the same pose, but then just raised up a level by something that looks irregular.
What if it wasn't flat on the top? Would that?
Yeah, so I think it looks a little bit better when they use the cork bark instead of just the flat sheets of cork. But even then, it can just be a bit over the top.
Okay, thumbs down for cork. One other quick thing that I'm going to mention is baby wipes.
Yeah.
So this was particularly to do. I did some custodies and I did like a sort of marble base.
Did a bloody good job of it as well.
Cheers very much. It took a little minute of practicing because the thing which I hadn't figured out was that the baby wipe needs to be completely dry.
Yeah.
But basically, dry out a baby wipe. You may have some if you have babies, fantastic. Or just go and buy some baby wipes, that's fine. And you just dry one out on a radiator and you pull it apart until it's almost fallen apart.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you base coat your base in whatever you want it to be, whether it's green, you want a sort of greenish marble, so paint green, or blue, whatever you want to do. And then you pull the baby wipe out over it until just some strands are covering it up. And then you go in with a white spray can and pull the thing off. And magically you've got this something which, depending on how well you've done, and there's a lot of randomness to it, looks like marble.
Because that's how you get, like, so it's where the baby wipe strands have covered is where you get the veins of the marble, right?
That's exactly
right.
Looks
awesome.
All right. Onwards. So basing stuff done. So I don't have an airbrush, so over to you on this one. But yeah, any top tips for airbrushes to get or to not, or the things that you need if you're airbrushing?
So I think everyone's mileage varies with airbrushes. I think if you're serious about a hobby and you feel like it's something that you can invest in, a good budget but still good airbrush is what I've got, which is the Badger 105 Patriot.
Okay. So this is renowned as a bit of a tank, isn't it?
Which is why I'm recommending it.
Okay.
So I went through 3 airbrushes prior to this, 2 of which being Amazon jobbies for 30 quid, 40 quid. And then another one being an Iwata Neo. And all of them are just disintegrated the nozzles on them because they're made out of like a really soft brass. And if they get clogged, you kind of need to get in and you have to take it off. And it's just a tiny little, like it's basically a nut that you have to unscrew, and they bend and warp really easily and things like that. And the Badger is American made, Eagle Scream, blah, blah, blah. But it's milled solid steel and like, I treat it very badly, but my needles are fine. I've like been in with the end of a knife cleaning out blockages, and it just keeps going. Just keeps trucking. They're solid. Quite easy to get spare parts for typically, and it's pretty good value. So I think it's about 90 quid for the airbrush as a set, and you get a 0.3 needle and nozzle and 0.5 needle and nozzle, which is like a base coat, a tank style nozzle, and then more like trying to do some fine stuff on miniatures. So really recommend that. But otherwise, if you don't mind just giving it a shot, just get that cheap 20 quid one, 30 quid one off eBay with a cheap pump and just have at it, practice. If you're cognizant of the fact that you probably aren't going to be able to get spares for it, and you're probably going to knack it because it's the first one and it's not very robust, then go for it. Okay. I've heard a lot of people say that the Green Stuff World portable ones are okay for just priming and stuff.
Is this one with like a sort of battery pack attached to it?
Yeah, so you don't even need to buy a pump. So
yeah, and you see some of those ones floating, lots of those ones floating around eBay
Amazon,
and stuff, other places like that as well.
Yeah.
And what else does somebody... So yeah, if I was getting a first airbrush and I've got my Badger Patriot, do you need extraction? Is paint going to go everywhere?
Paint's not going to go everywhere. You need a bit of clear space to do it. You need good lung protection, so a respirator that is rated for organic vapors.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, if you can afford one, but they are quite expensive, an airbrush boost, but you're looking at about 70 to 100 quid for one of them.
And this is something which is effectively going to suck the
Yes,
particulates outside a window.
Yeah, exactly. You've got a big filter block and then a fan that pulls stuff out and protects you. That and a pump. You need an air compressor of some variety. It's better if it has a tank because then your pressure's more consistent, but equally it's a lot more expensive. So, just go mad. Just pick one up and have a go is the best thing that I can say. Or find a friend that's got one and just ask if you can have a go there.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do at some point. Because, I need to understand whether or not it's going to be like a big enough of a game changer.
Yeah.
We've talked about having a dedicated hobby space. What you absolutely don't want to, or what I don't want to do is, to have it, but like not have the space to use it and not to understand how much space that's going to take. And then it's just, an expensive thing that sits under a desk.
Exactly. Yeah.
But there's a whole world, obviously, of like different, sort of techniques and, from like just base coating in whatever color you want to OSL and stuff like that, which seems very attractive. But yeah. All right. Anything else? Other stuff? Any other random things? I mean, I'm going to come out with one, which, we're talking about War Master, which has, facilitated me being able to paint better than is probably like sensible, but some magnifier goggles, or like glasses. So basically just like a headband, which has got like a magnifier that comes in. It was like £15 off Amazon or eBay or somewhere.
I think I'll be buying myself a set. Yeah,
pretty cool. So like my eyesight, as far as I'm aware, is fine. I think I went for an eye test about a year ago, and it was like 2020, so I don't have a need for glasses.
Yeah.
But God, the difference when you put in like a 2.5 times magnification, what you can see, and I think for painting faces and what have you, and for painting these War Master miniatures, it makes a big difference.
Makes a difference, yeah.
I'm going to be cautious with it with the War Master stuff because, like we were saying before, if you can see so well at such a small scale, then the temptation is to try and paint it like you normally would,
and fix things that you might not necessarily
and
pick
just
up on.
take forever to paint to paint like these tiny little guys, which isn't really the point. But you can. It takes a bit of getting used to as well, though.
I can imagine.
The paintbrush moves 2.5 times as fast as what you're used to.
Yeah.
Big difference. And I would like to try and paint faces, better and to a high quality with some nice glazing and like different tones going on. And I think this would make a big difference to be able to do that. So I'm gonna say magnifying goggles. Anything else across the hobby spectrum you'd want to talk about?
I thoroughly agree with good kitchen roll. I use Blitz.
Regina Blitz. Good man.
Yeah. So for a few reasons, it's lint free.
Yeah.
So you don't get like the dusty stuff that you can get off cheap stuff.
Yeah.
It absorbs a lot better. And it feels like when you're using it for a hobby, you're not having to just throw sheets away constantly. You can really use it until the end of the sheet, until there's no space left to...
One sheet of Regina Blitz, and I don't know if this is probably true for, its actual intended application of wiping up mess and stuff.
Yeah.
One sheet of Regina will go as far as, I don't know, 6 sheets of your cheap rubbish.
Easily, yeah. Especially when you use brush soaps and things like that, because you have to use quite a lot of stuff to clean off your brush afterwards.
Aldi does a snide version of Regina Blitz. So Regina Blitz is available in most supermarkets. I think
that is the Aldi one over there.
So it's called something or other Bang or Blast or something.
Yeah, I can't see. I haven't got my glasses on, but yeah.
Anyway. Also very good.
Yeah.
Also very good. But yeah, cheap kitchen rolls, no use. Good as well. So if I'm using a wet palette and it's a homemade wet palette, then good kitchen roll in the bottom of that stays flat when it's wet makes a big difference.
Doesn't wrinkle up, yeah.
All right, cool. One other thing that I've noted on here is storage. So you've got all these minis, you've got to put them somewhere.
Yeah.
Now I've been through some GW foam cases and... yeah, they're fine. You can carry your miniatures around in them, but on the downside, the foam is in contact with the miniatures.
Yeah,
it's probably going to rub paint off
and bends. You'll know yourself from having Marines. Anything where there's a spiky bit or what they're called, like the rosary beads and stuff that are hanging down.
Purity seals.
Anything that gets caught is a goner. if you're not careful.
Well, I think the GW cases were probably better back in the day when you had like little monopose
Iron Halo.
Marines.
Is that Iron Halo?
Iron Halo.
That's the one I was thinking of, yeah.
That's coming off. When miniatures were within a probably more defined silhouette and they weren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
But now we live in a world of, like centerpiece models and like, I don't know, Nighthaunt and all these different things.
Nighthaunt, terrible. Anything Drukhari, terrible because it's all spikes everywhere, isn't it?
So the answer to all of this is basically just boxes of any sort, but like really useful boxes or similar are great. And just rubber steel sheets in the bottom, which are like, and then magnets
on the bottom of the base. Yeah, it makes transporting them much safer. Makes moving them around if you're playing rank and flank stuff much better. It's just the way to do it.
There's some absolutely wild cases on the market now, isn't there? I saw like, is it Barry from the club had his knights being transported in one where I think it's like metal sheets within a hard metal.
So it's a Kvisk. It's a Kvisel.
So IKEA do a thing called a Kvisel, but he had like it's designed by a gaming company,
right? And
it's got like a glass on the front of it, so it's kind of like makes your stuff look amazing. I've seen quite a few people with Adeptus Titanicus stuff putting their Titans in these, and I think he had his Knights in one as well. So some high end versions of a similar thing are available. The one thing I'll say another thing that I'll say for anything like a magnetized type situation, like a really useful box with rubber steel in it, especially if you're playing like a bigger army game, especially if you're at a tournament or something, being able to take your minis off the table as they die and plop them straight back into like a magnetized box rather than then having to like
into the foam sections and stuff.
Yeah, clear down at the end of the game is absolutely massive.
Yep,
so,
love it.
All right. Well, look, I think that's about it. We've obviously going to have missed something really obvious. We'll think about as soon as we like stop recording this. But yeah, that's a pretty good overview. I think we could probably like dive more into some of this in a future episode.
Big topic, so yeah,
it's been a whistle stop tour of all the stuff that we need to actually do this hobby. But great. Shall we finish up with our secondary objectives? So
we should.
Something that we have been looking at slightly outside or close to the hobby in the last month, which has caught our attention. Do you want to go? Shall I go?
You go.
I'll go. All right. So this is a bit of a curveball, but like it's a YouTube channel. But like I'm gonna come out with big talk. I think this is the best YouTube channel, the best content on YouTube that I've ever seen.
Wow.
And I think this is maybe
even better than Betrayed by Dice.
It's on a par with this podcast. But I'm going to try and describe this without giving too much away because it's kind of cool just to sort of like discover the dude at the same time. But basically, the channel is called Bobby Fingers.
Right.
And what it is a guy who makes dioramas of particularly interested moments in the lives of powerful male celebrities, I'm going to say. So he's made a diorama of Michael Jackson going on fire on stage whilst filming a Pepsi commercial in, I think, 1986. He's made a diorama of Mel Gibson getting arrested at the same time as dishing out some anti-Semitic abuse.
Did you post a picture of that in the Discord?
I have posted this in the Discord. And all of that sounds, that's fine. And the guy's kind of amazing.
Anti-Semitic abuse isn't fine. But
anti-Semitic abuse is never fine, at all.
Yeah.
But to make a diorama of Mel Gibson as he's copping the flack for dishing that out is something else.
Absolutely fine. Yeah.
So the guy who's doing it is this Irish guy. He's clearly he's got a lot of involvement in the movie industry. I think he does prosthetics. He's a musician. He does some music for the thing. He ends up, without giving too much away, he does say this at the start of his videos. He ends up burying the things that he makes, whilst having given away clues about where they're located throughout the video.
Right.
So, and if you dig the thing up, it's yours. But he comes at this with just an absolutely bizarre sense of humor, which just completely chimes with me.
Yeah.
And it's just absolutely worth a look. So yeah, check out Bobby Fingers on YouTube and see how you get on with it. It's brilliant.
I will do. Yeah, it does sound good. That might be my bedtime watching today.
The most recent one is he made a boat, out of Jeff Bezos's face. And part of this involved him traveling to Turkey to have a single arse hair implanted on his own head. And there's reasons for this. But yeah, check out Bobby Fingers. Check out Bobby Fingers and you'll find out why. It's completely different than anything I've ever seen.
Insane, yeah. It does. It sounds really insane.
Good. Anyway, what's yours?
My secondary objective, I think this time, is going to be going back to my bust and getting it painted.
All right, rinse and repeat?
Rinse and repeat.
Cool.
Or not a false start this time, hopefully.
All right.
And I think I need to really immerse myself in the War Master stuff so that we both have an idea of how to play when we get to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that so much. I mean, I think, my plan is going to be not to be painted by the time we're coming to play, just to blue tack some guys onto some little bases and move them around. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the game just sounds so interesting.
Yep.
So yeah.
Can't wait.
All right. Well, look, thanks for listening. That's been a whopper.
It has.
I don't know what we're ticking over at, but if you're still here, thanks for sticking with us. That's been a long painting session that you've managed there.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for listening. You can contact us at betrayedbydice@gmail.com. And the next episode should be with you in about a month. That's the schedule we started off at, and I think we can probably just about stick to this.
Mm-hmm.
And so our next topic, we're thinking of going for a bit of a spicier one.
Yeah.
We're going to up the Scoville rating and get into the complex business of playing games that represent actual world stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot of ethical questions to be asked, isn't there?
There definitely is. There's a lot going on. It's going to continue probably a conversation that you and I started after. Well, it was earlier this year off the back of a Midwinter Minis video, which was slightly clickbaity. But yeah, the title was "The Big Problem with Historical War Games,"
mm-hmm.
and the problem that they were positing was that somebody has to be the Nazis, or the Germans,
and in doing so, I think there was a bit of an insinuation that makes that person a bad person, wasn't it? Or it felt like there was a bit of an intonation that is potentially the case.
Yeah, absolutely. So loads to unpack there, and
I mean, a big debate in our club as well, didn't it? There was quite a lot of and some surprising opinions about it as well. People that were quite upset about the whole thing in general, just the war game in general, not comfortable with.
Well, I think it's really interesting. It doesn't just get into we are shuffling around these little plastic guys, whatever world we're talking about.
Yeah.
And my guys are trying to kill your guys and vice versa. So there's some stuff to talk about here for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll try and do it in a grown-up and reasonable way without kicking off or anything like that. But yeah, really looking forward to that. But in the meantime, thanks so much for listening, guys.
Thanks, guys.
All the best. Cheers.
Take care.